to say how do we then bring them on our side and make sure that we process all of those together with them on the South African side to allow the people to enter into Mozambique.
Recapping the top story, President Cyril Ramaphosa has joined world leaders to congratulate Donald Trump following his victory in the U.S. presidential elections. Trump defeated Kamala Harris of the Democrats in the polls. I am Onde Lambana for SAFM News. Headlines at 3:30.
And coming up in your sports this hour, Betway prize money increase and Smia speaks on her fight with World Athletics, while Warner is back as cricket captain after leadership ban lifted. More details at 3:30.
South African Airways is expanding in the DRC. We now offer direct flights from Johannesburg to Lubumbashi, the heart of the DRC's mining hub. Our convenient arrival time allows seamless connections to key regions like Ndola and the Copper Belt, opening up new growth opportunities. Traders can benefit from our generous baggage allowance, while SAA's superior aircraft belly capacity ensures your cargo reaches most parts of Congo on the same day. Book now at flysaa.com or contact your travel agent. South African Airways, connecting Africa to the world, one flight at a time.
Our role must be to seek to build a better world.
SAFM invites you to our annual public lecture, delivered by former Minister Dr. Naledi Pandor. The theme for the lecture is 30 Years of South African Freedom, reimagining South Africa's democracy, achievements, challenges, and the road ahead in protecting our democratic gains. The lecture will take place on the 21st of November 2024 at the Birchwood Hotel and Conference Center. Secure your seat by emailing us at info@safm.co.za.
Today, I'm part of seeking to build a better South Africa.
SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
So if you were hoping that I start the show and saying, can you imagine it? We've got Kamala Harris as the President of the United States. Well, just erase all of that, delete. How does this sound? Donald Trump, President of the United States again. How does that sound? Because that's the world we live in. And as we often say, we talk about that primarily because of the strategic, economic, and political importance of the USA to the rest of the world. Like it or lump it, that's the reality. So we'll certainly talk about that. Donald Trump is now the president. Seems to be an amazing comeback. You know, people talked about this close nail biter. Well, that clearly did not happen either, which means most people actually got it wrong completely, the analysts that truly matter. So what about you and your own analysis? I mean, give me two things. One, just your general thoughts on the U.S. election. Some of the thoughts that come through, you can certainly connect with me, 086 000 2032. And then WhatsApp, text or voice notes, 0614 104 107, 0614 104 107. Right, you can also post on social media, you know that, on the Twitter or X platform, where you get Donald Trump's big buddy, Elon Musk, who's been like his number one campaign driver, I would think, using the X platform. Nothing X-rated about that, he may say. And then we have Facebook as well, and do tag me as well, Ashraf Garda. Right, by the way, as you're commenting, and I like to use these one-worders because it seems to be going pretty great. So, you can give a general comment, that's fine, okay, on the U.S. election and any other big issue that for you moves the national pulse today. But what's the one word for you that best describes the return to power of Donald Trump? Don't give me 10 lines, just one word. An emotional one word that best describes the return to power of Donald Trump. What would that word be? What is that word? Okay, let's get to opinions, of course, as we plan to do. First up, we chat to Douglas Hay, who's a former Republican strategist. So that's interesting, very much in the Donald Trump camp, who has served in leading communications positions in the House of Representatives and the U.S. Senate. the Republican National Committee, as well as serving in the George W. Bush administration. So, Douglas, you certainly one who would have huge experience, and you'd understand what it means on a day like today, where your party member would be the president of a country once again.
Yes, well, thank you for having me. And let me say hello to my friend Linda Way Mazabuco if she is listening. I gave her an alert to tune in. It's very good to be with you this morning.
Thank you.
Last night was fundamentally a change election. And for all of his faults and all the crazy things that he says and that he does, Donald Trump represented change. While Kamala Harris not only didn't represent change, she had explicitly said in interviews that she wouldn't do anything differently than Joe Biden. I think that's a big part of why voters made the decision that they made yesterday. And the other is we're seeing a fundamental reorientation in the country and how they vote, most specifically with Hispanic voters that went for Donald Trump in much greater numbers than they did in 2020
okay, that's
or
so
2016.
Interesting. Well, hopefully if Lindiwe Mazibuko is listening, she can give you a thumbs up on it. She can even tweet out or send you a WhatsApp. In fact, tweet out, Lindiwe. Otherwise, we're going to tweet you anyway, right? But a WhatsApp text message is cool. 0614 104 107. So let me just start with the first point you brought about Kamala Harris. You're saying that she said, I will do more of the same, suggesting in that case that the person she replaced, Joe Biden, was doing a fabulous job. And you're saying technically that's just the worst thing you can possibly do, right?
Absolutely. And she was in an interview on ABC Network on a show called The View and was asked, not a difficult question, but it was asked, what would you do differently than Biden? And she said, nothing comes to mind. And as soon as that was said, everybody in the country saw it. It went viral. And I think it was something that Republicans in the Trump campaign, and I say Republicans up and down the ballot, Senate races use this as well, House races, were able to use in a change year that Democrats did not represent change. And that provided massive inroads for Trump and Republicans. Okay,
so what then did Trump say differently, keeping in mind that I get your point that even if you're the incumbent, assuming Trump was now elected in two successive elections, which is not the case, but assuming that were the case, it's still necessary to bring up a new vision, a higher plane, right? But the fact is he was the president before. So what did he say differently this time compared to what it was, 8 years ago now, that won him an election?
Sure. Well, he had a record of Joe Biden's, essentially, or the Biden-Harris administration that he was running against. And every bit of polling that we saw showed that voters were most concerned about two issues, the economy and the border. And those were issues that Trump, again, he says erratic things. He goes off the rails sometimes, but every speech hammered home on 2 points, that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have done a terrible job on the economy and that they've done a terrible job on the border. And ultimately, that resonated through. A lot of the gaffes or crazy things that Donald Trump says get talked about a lot in newsrooms in New York City and Washington, D.C., but that's not what voters are focused on. They're focused on what's going on in their daily lives.
And you're saying that, like it or not, it's interesting, this show is called The National Pulse, that Trump was able to press the button that reflects the pulse of that nation and got that right.
Absolutely. And Harris, by contrast, not only didn't do that, but often seemed to be unwilling to do that. Not just because she wouldn't criticize Biden policy, but she wouldn't really say a whole lot of what she would do. So, as example, she was asked by a local TV anchor in Philadelphia, obviously a very important city, what specifically, Kamala Harris, would you do to enact the opportunity economy? And that was the phrase that she would use, an opportunity economy. And she gave this word salad about how people want to be proud of their lawns and how she was raised. She didn't say, here are 3 things I'm going to do. And voters saw and heard that over and over again, and it wasn't clear what Harris would do. Nobody could tell you, for instance, what the first 100 days of Kamala Harris's administration would be. Donald Trump was saying loudly, I'm going to do this on day one.
On the other hand, would you then say, does that suggest that Donald Trump was perceived to have done a good job the first time around. And if that were the case, then how did he lose the election when he went for the second term?
Well, one, voters viewed Donald Trump in the sort of rosier lens of having been removed from the White House. What we see consistently in this country is after somebody has left power, they're viewed more positively. George Bush is viewed more positively. Barack Obama is viewed more positively. Trump benefited from some of that. And there's obviously a realization of the last year of his presidency was wrapped in COVID, which wasn't anything of his doing and something that any administration would struggle with. And a lot of the supply chain issues, some of the inflation that came from that sort of was out of Donald Trump's control. But again, voters said, we don't want this anymore. And this was the Biden-Harris administration.
He also spoke, and certainly in the build-up to the campaign, repeatedly talked about, we want to make America great again. And I'm telling myself, but goodness, man, this man said the same thing the last time round. So if you're still going to make America great again, it does suggest that you failed in your first attempt. Why would he have done that? Because that would be a good example of just repeating the narrative.
Well, in fact, sometimes he would say, we want to make America great again. To say we were in a great place, at least up until we got COVID, and look what has happened since. And the overall mood of the country was that Donald Trump was better on the economy, issue number one, than Joe Biden or Kamala Harris on this. And that ultimately was something that Harris was unable to escape.
What about, therefore, just the reflection on Biden, rather on Trump's personality? When I say personality, I mean there's been a number of lawsuits. There's been the attack on Capitol Hill, as we're well aware of, when he lost that election. There's been impeachments. There's been so many things to his name. Some of it convictions, others not. But what does that say then about the American people's belief and trust in this person to lead their country?
Yeah, so I'm sitting about a half a mile away from the United States Capitol right now. January 6th is a pretty personal day, to me, because I worked in that building and actually packed a bag to leave in case I had to. It was reprehensible behavior by Donald Trump. But voters were not looking backwards. They just fundamentally weren't. They were looking at, here are our lives now, and which candidate is addressing those issues that are most important to me. And overwhelmingly, what we've seen, and not just in the swing states, and this is one of the things that, as we really dissect this election, is going to be very interesting for the direction of the country moving forward. Donald Trump didn't just win in North Carolina, Georgia, Pennsylvania, etc. He closed the gap pretty dramatically in a lot of states that weren't really in play. It means New Jersey was closer, North Carolina was closer, Connecticut was closer. It means there's a shift in the country, and Democrats are going to have to figure out what that means for them moving forward.
Which then suggests what? That ultimately, if people are told a story and they buy into that vision, it really doesn't matter what that same person may have told them before and whether that person then fell foul of that very same vision in the past. It really doesn't matter. Voters are convinced every 4 years and they're like, okay, we'll give this person another chance.
Well, from the beginning of the campaign, and by the beginning I mean when it was Trump versus Biden, Trump always rated better on the economy than Kamala Harris, or than Joe Biden. That remained true with Kamala Harris as well. Harris was able to close that gap a little bit, but she was never able to overcome that. And if you're on the wrong side of the number one issue, it's hard to see how you win. And we saw a lot of movement towards the end of the race. There seemed to be this surge for Harris that ultimately disappeared. And I think it goes back to Donald Trump was viewed as being more effective on the number one and number two issues that voters were reacting to, and especially the residents with Hispanics. Democrats have treated, I think, Hispanics more as a very special political group, and we have to talk to them this way and this way. And the reality is 80% of Hispanic voters are working class voters, which means they react to issues like every other working class voter. So they're concerned about the situation at the border. They're concerned about where the economy is. It's not that you talk to them as if they're Hispanic and only Hispanic, and that's how you reach them. It's going to be a real lesson for Democrats moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of comments people asking about Trump, not domestic policy, but foreign policy, particularly Ukraine, Russia, Palestine, Israel. What's your thoughts about what he said before and how he may play that differently this time round?
Yeah, fundamentally, voters were not invested in foreign policy issues. If they were, maybe some of this would go a little differently. Clearly, there were some problems for Harris in Michigan dealing with Muslim voters, where Trump did very well. That makes the Israel-Gaza issue, I think, very interesting. And clearly, Trump has been a huge backer of Israel this entire time. Does his increased measure of Muslim voters in the United States give him more license in the Middle East? Perhaps. I think we have to see. On the question with Ukraine, Trump has said he's going to bring this to an end. What that means, I don't think we fully appreciate yet. Obviously, there's a lot of nervousness in Ukraine. There's a lot of nervousness in Eastern and Western Europe. I've been to Poland 3 times in the past 2 years. There's a lot of nervousness. And that's part of what Donald Trump is going to have to address. And he's going to do it, both in press conferences and big statements and so forth, but also one-on-one on the phone with all of these leaders.
And I mean, similar, I've got a quick response. Someone saying, will he continue sending arms the way the Democrats did, referring again to the issue of Gaza or Palestine and Israel. But here's the quick thing to you, right? Do you have a sense that he actually has a new plan? Because I'm saying again, we all know this, when you campaign for election is one. Okay, so the answer is no. You don't think there's a new plan?
No.
Which means what's likely to happen there? Because you'd hope that the whole world watching and listening would say, can there be deals made in both regions, Ukraine, Russia, Israel, Palestine?
Yeah, look, Donald Trump has always sort of built himself and branded himself as the great deal maker. Now, he's never actually made them as president, so this would be an opportunity for him to do so. My expectation to your listener is that he sends more arms to Israel. And tries to use that potentially as leverage ultimately to cut a deal. And a deal would, I think, have to involve hostages being set free. And Donald Trump is very mindful that the images that would come of the American hostages returning home would be very powerful for him.
And that's where we're going to appreciate you giving off your time. They were Douglas Hare, the former Republican strategist, celebrating, I would think, as many Americans are doing, they have a new president.
My name's Michael Fontaine. I'm 16. I have difficulty paying attention in class, so I fell behind. That's why my parents moved me to UCT Online High School. I can't thank them enough. Their flexible learning means I can take classes when it suits me, so I get ahead and stay ahead. Visit uctonlinehighschool.com to learn more. Applications close 29 November 2024.
Are you looking for the best spectacle and sunglass deal? At Specsavers, get a free pair of branded prescription sunglasses up to 3,200 Rand. Affordable eye care, Specsavers. T's and C's apply. India plan to cause an upset in Mzansi's own backyard. However, the Proteas are all about hitting the ground running at St. George's Oval to demonstrate what the Protea fire looks like. What a summer without cricket. Catch the spectacular second T20 international match between South Africa and India on Sunday 10 November at 3:30 p.m. live on SABC3 and 4 p.m. on Radio 2000. With reports on various SABC radio stations. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Think bigger than just a banking partner. Think a team of specialized experts supporting you to make better financial decisions to enable your growth aspirations. Think a strategic partnership providing indispensable advice to help you make the right moves. Think bigger. Think Nedbank Commercial Banking. For more information, visit nedbank.co.za. See money differently. Nedbank. We're a licensed FSP and registered credit provider.
Well, we've been talking about Eskom all through the month, so let me give you another reminder. You know that Eskom customers must recode meters by the 24th of November, right? So if you don't, well, you'd have a situation now that you'd have no power thereafter. So this is what you need to be doing, right? Eskom has made the process easy for you, and they've pre-coded all meters already. But what you need to be doing now is to get to any Eskom-approved electricity outlet, buy an electricity credit token, and the Eskom team is then on standby to
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
Right, let's get another take on the issue of the U.S. election. Again, because, they sneeze, we catch a cold, right? So another take comes from Tricia C.K. Hoffler, who's the CEO of the C.K. Hoffler firm and the former National Bar Association president. Now, she is also counsel to civil rights icon, the Reverend Jesse Jackson. Tricia, appreciate your time and thanks for connecting to the National Pulse.
Oh, no, it's great to be here, although this is really, really a sad occasion, but it's great to be here to share my views on what happened and what we're experiencing here in the U.S. today.
All right, so this is a sad
Absolutely. I mean, I think I would express it in stronger terms than that, but the reality is the outcome is the outcome, and it's one that we have to accept and live with and still continue to work and push for justice despite the outcome.
So why do you think she lost?
I still haven't, I have to be very candid. The past few days, but in particular yesterday, I ran a command center for election protection through my office in Georgia that covered Georgia, Pennsylvania, and North Carolina for the National Bar Association and Transformative Justice Coalition and other, we coordinated with other stakeholders such as the NAACP, ACLU, other stakeholders that have been fighting for voting rights equity. And there were so many things that we saw in Georgia and throughout the country, actually, that were very disturbing in terms of voter suppression. But putting that aside, I think that this race was a close race. We knew it was going to be a close race. And I think that I don't think there's anything more that Vice President Harris could have done. She raised the money. She stood up. She stepped in. She was a strong advocate, a strong voice. And it just didn't turn out the way that we all had hoped, many of us hoped.
Okay, if you're saying there's nothing more she could have done, is there more that the Democrats themselves could have done? Example, could they have paved the way for her to run for the presidency much earlier than she did, instead of holding on to Joe Biden, knowing that we all could see that clearly the man was failing in terms of just doing his day-to-day work because of age and ill health? It is obvious for all to see.
Right. Well, I think there is more that the Democratic Party could have done sooner, but that's playing Monday morning quarterback for me, because the reality was we were in a state of complete disarray when it became very apparent to us, to the world, that unfortunately President Biden was not going to be up for the task at hand. And so, yes, and it took a couple of weeks, quite frankly, too long, for the Democratic Party to get itself together, and as opposed to looking everywhere for a candidate who could beat or who could prevail, they weren't looking at her, and she was the most viable candidate at the time and until the end. So I think, yes, the Democratic Party could have reacted, could have acted much sooner, could have taken steps much sooner, because we know, they knew exactly the rigors that it would take to launch a massive campaign.
So here's the thoughts. I'm just looking at this from regarding Donald Trump, right? 34 felony counts, 1 conviction, 2 cases pending, 2 impeachments, 6 bankruptcies, right? And yet he gets elected. Well, not so much. I suppose he's re-elected, not in successive terms anyway, right? I mean, that is on one hand a damning statement about the American people's being convinced to vote for him on the one hand, but it also talks a lot about the opposition. That means no matter what he has done wrong, they would still prefer him over anybody else.
Well, there's one word to describe that, and that's disgraceful. It is disgraceful that this country, my country, that we as people voted to have someone who has all of the things that you mentioned. A convicted felon. There's so many things that make it simply disgraceful. But it is the reality. And I think we have to examine gender politics, racial politics in this country. Because, yes, this would have been the second African-American person to be president of the United States, but the first woman ever. Gender politics play a very important role in this, as do racial politics, but gender politics in particular.
Okay, you can answer this in one go then. Do you think Kamala Harris lost because she was a woman? And if that may be the case, then what is her future?
Well, I think being a woman, it didn't help. I won't say that's the only reason. I think part of it, the war in Gaza played a role, particularly with young voters and how they feel. It's very, very difficult for Americans in this country to have to see and to live the reality of the war in Gaza and not be impacted. And they put that squarely at the feet of the Biden administration. So that was probably your greatest Achilles heel. But Donald Trump's approach is probably going to be worse. But I think that gender played a big part. It wasn't the only factor, though. I think that we don't need to be misled down a hole because that was a factor. But also, all of the magnificent things about her were factors, and her raising more money than anyone that I've seen in my lifetime raise the Democratic Party.
Well, let's leave it at that. You said now we know raising money is important, but it's not quite enough. I suppose we should have another conversation sometime sooner, Tricia, when you get over your disappointment. I thank you for your time, but I mean, your point, your telling one word is disgusting, and that's a word that I've asked other people to give as well in terms of giving their one word on the election of Donald Trump. So Tricia C.K. Hoffler, CEO of the C.K. Hoffler firm, former president of the National Bar Association in the USA. Really appreciate your time. Let's get the news headlines now. Here's Ondela Imbana.
Thank you, Ashraf. News headlines at 3:30. President Cyril Ramaphosa has joined world leaders to congratulate Donald Trump following his victory in the U.S. presidential elections. The port of Mossel Bay in the Garden Route region of the Western Cape is undergoing a 1 billion rand upgrade to increase its trade and tourism functionality, and the Democratic Alliance in Gauteng is calling for a multidisciplinary team to be formed in response to the spate of child deaths as a result of consuming contaminated food purchased at spaza shops. A full update follows at the top of the hour.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, some Ray of Air bus feeder services throughout Soweto remain disrupted, so please do check before travel. The N3 northbound in Lindbro Park has a crash before Marlborough Drive, and Bears Nodia Drive westbound in Rand Park Ridge has a crash reported at Malope Road. In KZN, the N2 southbound is closed at Joyner Road due to structural damage at the bridge, so you're asked to expect diversions and heavy delays. The N3 westbound in Pinetown has a crash reported. That's after Marion Hill Toll Plaza. The N3 westbound has a stationary vehicle reported near Pavilion Shopping Centre exit. Umgeni Road westbound is slow moving through Springfield Park, and Prospection Road is slow moving through Prospection due to traffic being diverted from the N2 highway closure. In Cape Town, the M5 southbound is slow moving towards Krumbum Road exit. The M3 southbound is slow moving towards Rhodes Drive. The N7 Jakes Hadwell Drive northbound has a crash reported after Voortrekker Road, and Victoria Road outbound is slow moving through Woodstock. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Khapele.
Right, Tumi, you've got some money news, right?
Absolutely. We're talking all things PSL and the increase in prize money from 15 million rand to 20 million rand for the champions of the 2024-25 season. Other incentives for the rest of the teams will be communicated at a later stage. Meanwhile, PSL chairman Dr. Irvin Khoza says that the new trophy, on the other hand, remains a work in progress.
But also what was important, that's something that we did not talk about, was the trophy. Now the trophy is going to take a very unique journey, because it's a trophy that has got a lot of history, a lot of culture elements around it. It's going to take a bit of some time to finalize. It's a story on its own, it's a journey on its own. I can only say to the members of the Fourth Estate, watch the space. Because it's something monumental, something historical, something best to come out of this country. Because so many things that are beautiful, but we forget to talk about them ourselves. So the essence of the journey that's going to be undertaken in finalizing the trophy is going to capture the essence of who we are as South Africans. The best of can get out of this country. So I'm saying to the members of the Fourth Estate, will be invited when that journey starts to share with you the development of that journey, the traveling of that journey, ultimately to the day we finalize the issue of the trophy. So watch the space.
Well, looking forward to seeing how that new trophy is going to look. Then in tonight's action, Stellenbosch will be looking to add to TS Galaxy's problems when the two teams meet at Athlone Stadium tonight at 7:30. The Rockets are rooted at the bottom of the log and they're yet to claim 3 points in the league. Just a point to their name, so very desperate for a win tonight. Also, Stellies on the other hand, they're hoping for a win to break into the top 3. Then there's also that action between Mamelodi Sundowns and Polokwane City. They'll be looking for revenge against City at Loftus Versfeld. Meanwhile, the Champions League continues tonight with 18 more teams. Arsenal captain Martin Odegaard could return in tonight's clash against Inter Milan. The 25-year-old has been out since September, and Mikel Arteta says that he'll decide later if he'll use him or not. He was in training yesterday. In other selected fixtures, Aston Villa travel to Club Brugge. Bayern Munich will be eating to collect 3 points against Benfica, and Barcelona away to Cervena Zvezda. And then moving on to athletics, South African athletics icon Caster Semenya says that she's no longer affected by her battle with World Athletics regarding its testosterone regulations. Restricted from competing in middle distance events like 800 meter and 1500 meter due to elevated testosterone levels, Semenya has spent the past 5 years challenging the governing body's rules, and although her ban has prevented her from participating in the last 2 Olympic Games in Tokyo and Japan, she remains committed to advocating for young girls who may find themselves in similar situations.
My fight, I moved on. I'm in a space where, really, to be honest, it's no longer about, that fight there. I played my part. I think now it's more of, we say people are activists. I think I see myself more as a role model to the kids, making sure that in everything that I do in the best interest of the youth. Because you have to understand that there are a lot of young girls that are affected by, what have been affected, too. So the goal is to remind them that, look, to get the courage to accept and move on, but fight when it's necessary to fight. So for me, it's one of those battles that to say, look, you fight authorities to do right for athletes. So I think I'm in that space where I'll say, look, competition to me is no longer a factor. A factor is changing other people's lives, which is what I'm doing now.
In cricket, David Warner was named captain of Big Bash League team Sydney Thunder today after having his lifetime ban on any leadership role in Australian cricket lifted. Warner was cast as the main villain in the so-called Sandpapergate scandal in the Cape Town Test of 2018. The opening batsman conspired with Australia's then skipper Steve Smith and Cameron Bancroft to tamper with the surface of the ball using sandpaper, and he was suspended from playing for a year and banned from any leadership role for life. In rugby, the Springbok assistant coach Dwayne Vermeulen has warned that Sunday's end of the year tour test against Scotland will be anything but a walk in the park. Now, the Boks will face the Thistles at home of Scottish Rugby Murrayfield on Sunday in their first test on tour. The Scots have already played a test in their autumn series, while the Springboks have only been together for just over a week. Now, Vermeulen says that it's hard to tell if the Scotland team is better than the one that they faced at the Rugby World Cup in France last year, but they know that the hosts will be fired up and they will need to be wary of that. That's it. It's a wrap from my side for now.
I want to ask you this. I may have missed this earlier part when you spoke about the new sponsors. I get that. But did you say there'll be a new trophy unveiled as well?
There will be a new trophy as well unveiled.
And when will that happen?
We don't know.
So here's my question.
They just said with time we will find out.
And this is for the league title, right?
Yes,
So why a new trophy?
because there's a new sponsor on board.
I don't like that.
What don't you like?
You can't. You can change your sponsor every 3-4 years, because I understand that,
Yes.
right? But when you change a trophy, the emotional connection to winning that one trophy disappears.
I get you.
If I look at the Football World Cup, yes, they had the FIFA World Cup all the years with the Jules Rimet trophy. Then it was replaced when Brazil won it outright, and they replaced it with the FIFA World Cup trophy now. And if I look at the Rugby World Cup, the tiniest trophy of them all, right? You cherish it. And then I could look at cricket, and I could look at other sports as well. When a child grows up and you aspire to winning something, you're going to win that trophy, not any other trophy. So now you're saying that, what is it, the DSTV trophy, that's history now. I wonder who gets to keep it. I mean, I'll keep it if they want to, but I'm just thinking,
Sundowns.
no matter who the sponsor is, there has to be a uniformity of the actual trophy. They can have a title right, which is absolutely fine, but trophies changing every few years means you don't have legacy, which is one of the biggest problems in South African football, because outside the 3-4 big teams, there's also name changes of clubs every year.
True.
And that dilutes club support and emotional connection. Maritzburg City is now, Durban City, if I'm not mistaken? Yeah, that sort of thing, yeah. More sports in an hour.
So why should I use We Buy Cars if I want to sell my vehicle?
Because We Buy Cars buys cars.
But will I get the right price?
Of course. We Buy Cars buys thousands of vehicles and knows exactly what every vehicle is worth. Their buyers deliver exceptional service and pay you immediately.
And how do I know what they'll pay for my vehicle?
It's easy. Visit webuycars.co.za or use the We Buy Cars app. Follow the simple steps and voila, you'll know your car's value in no time. We Buy Cars. Quick, easy, the best.
Rise and shine. Plan to keep rising and shining with victory to secure a decent top-half spot. But the Rockets are not impressed with their slow start of the season. They believe this is the time to collect 3 points. Limpopo battles it out with Mpumalanga. This is the Betway Premiership. Catch Mzansi's beautiful game, Polokwane City FC versus TS Galaxy FC on Saturday, 9 November at 2:30 p.m. Live on SABC 1 and SABC radio stations. Also available everywhere for everyone, always on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
Right, a reminder of that Eskom deadline firstly for you, right? 24th November, you need to recode your Eskom meters, and if you don't do that, well, it's been pre-coded already for you, so you need to get into an Eskom-approved electricity outlet. If you don't do that, well, you'd stand to lose power, and if you do that, then, of course, they've got their teams on standby as well to be able to help you. So don't forget all of that, right? Eskom prepaid meters deadline 24th of November.
You're listening to the National Pulse on SAFM.
Right, let's talk about another issue in the Free State region. In fact, we're going to talk about this from the Mangaung Metro. But let's get to a caller first up. Bongi Nkosi in Cape Town, you have a view on Trump. Go ahead.
Hi, good afternoon, Ashok, and good afternoon to your listeners.
Yeah, good talking to you.
I call these elections. I'm actually not surprised that Trump won. The truth is, besides the excitement that Kamala Harris is a first black, female candidate, there was nothing else. I mean, besides that excitement. Truth be told, if you look at 3 issues that are the biggest issues in America right now, I mean, your border, or immigration, your economy, your jobs, and of course, what is happening in the Middle East and Eastern Europe. On all those 3 issues, she didn't say anything. She didn't say anything. And if you look at Trump, whether you believe him or not, he promised peace. I mean, he promised peace in the Middle East and in Eastern Europe, which is what we want, really. I mean, instead of keep on funding those countries to kill each other like we see now. He promised, to close the border, which is what is his biggest issue. And, of course, on the economy as well. And I think, really, it's a lesson for all of us, especially South Africans, that you don't weaponize and politicize institutions, of government because you want, to really get a political advantage. And I think that is what happened in America.
Well, I mean, I think, interesting, the earlier chat with Douglas Hay, if you heard it, he said something very similar. Yes, he's very much a Republican, so he's very much in the Trump corner, but he did make the point that, yes, Kamala Harris actually said very little. And when you say it'll be more of the same, then you're actually telling people you have no vision. So even if you're doing well, and you are not doing well as the Democratic Party, more of the same is just not going to convince anybody. And you're right.
Absolutely.
So point taken. And the sentiments of being a woman or a African American woman or an Indian, Jamaican American, whatever the connections may be, that only has so much currency and not more than that. So Bongi Nkosi, thank you for your time. Appreciate that call. Right, give me your one word. By the way, your one word that you would use to describe Donald Trump's return to power. So my guest earlier on, Tricia C.K. Hoffler, her one word is disgusting. She's disgusted at the fact that Americans will go out and vote for Trump again after all that's happened to him. Well, you give me your one word. You can tweet it out on the X platform. Just tag SFM Radio and myself. You can WhatsApp, text, voice note 0614 104 107. And when you call in, you can do that to 086 000 2032. Right, let's come back home now to the Free State, to the Mangaung region. The Mangaung Metro has issued a letter announcing a verification process that is aimed at ensuring that people who meet the qualification criteria occupy the Brandwach social housing units. This, as they're also dealing with the issue of illegal evictions in the area. Let's get a clear understanding of what the issue really is here with Gregory Ntatisi, the Mangaung Executive Mayor. Appreciate your time, Executive Mayor. Thanks for connecting on the National Pulse.
Thank you so much. And how are you, sir?
I'm very good indeed. So give us the backstory. What's the problem and how do you solve the problem?
Well, we have a problem of residents that gave themselves the property of the municipality that was run by SHRA and subletting it to people without paying a cent to the municipality. So we're busy trying to regularize our people that are staying in those flats as we speak now. And in the process of doing so, we do get some resistance from these illegal landlords that are trying to resist the process of verification. But we are game and determined to ensure that the rightful thing is done.
All right, so how are you going to go about it? Give me the sense of the processes that are going to take place now, because you obviously have to measure or weigh against your needs to govern and to ensure there's some sort of administration, but the reality, there are people who are desperate to get housing and other issues, right?
Well, let's start by saying the people who are living in those houses are those that we can say they're desperate, and as a result, they ended up renting from these people that are already having homes elsewhere, and they are now subletting to these people illegally, and these people that are illegally receiving money from this illegal landlords are actually paying landlords, but the landlords are not actually paying a cent to the municipality. Our contract with the landlords does not have any space where it allows them to even sublet the property of the municipality. So we are recognizing those that are staying in those properties, and we are saying those are the ones that we must give the rightful relationship with the municipality in terms of a contract. And for that, we are determined to do.
Okay. What's the mood of the people now? Because, again, I would sense that there could well be friction. There's an expectation, but generally people who are desperate, and you made the point, are also very fearful of administration. So what's the mood of the people? And do you see any tension there?
Well, there is a tendency of people being fed wrong information on the activities that the municipality is conducting itself, in a way by these landlords who feed wrong information that would suggest we are actually evicting everyone that lives in those properties, which is not the case. And the mood is that those that are willing to stay in those homes are able and willing to do so, but being disturbed by those that, as and when we leave the premises, then they will start attacking those that are living in there. We have involved the police, and for that we are certain that we'll get the processes right.
How do you give us a sense of the criteria you refer to? When you talk about criteria to ensure that people who meet that qualification criteria can occupy the Brandwach social housing units. What is the criteria?
Look, the criteria is that the Brandwag social housing accommodate people according to the level of earnings. If you earn a particular amount of money, you'll be given a particular rate that you have to pay to the municipality. But these mischief makers are actually renting to students. We don't even understand how did NSFAS come into being. They are also renting to people who are working at ridiculous amount. A property that could be rented for about 1.2, they rent it for 5,000, they rent it for 7,000. They are just collecting even ridiculous amount from the poorest of the poor. So that's what we are stopping for starters, to accommodate those that are needy, to say you have been paying ridiculous amount to these people. We are now giving you the channels to have a contract with the municipality and ensure that a municipality that survives by collection does services its loan with SRA, because SRA borrowed the money to build those flats, and we must pay them, and we can only pay them if people are paying their rental. So that's what we are doing.
And if they don't have the money because they like completely stone broke and poor, what do you do then?
Well, of course, the responsibility of the municipality and government in general is to ensure that before we can evict those that do not have the money, we must first source an alternative accommodation. And remember, the government has got a number of processes. One of those would be CRU, which is a residential unit that some of them are still under construction, where we can accommodate those that are unable to pay, whereas others are saying we do have the money, we can build our own homes, we source land for them so that they must be able to go and construct their own dwellings wherever they can get evidence to do so. So we are doing the best that we can.
And that's where you're going to leave it. That clearly, that story will run, I'm sure about that. Gregory Ntatisi, the Mangaung executive mayor, referring to the housing issues in that region around what is called the Brandwag social housing unit. Right, your one word to describe the election or the return to power of Donald Trump. Let me flip it around. Your one word for Kamala Harris. Give me, two one-worders. Trump, Harris. I'd like to know what you think. There's some fascinating words that people have used. I mean, just what descriptions? Like someone saying criminal, others saying supercalifragilistic something, whatever. You know, the whole long version. More on Trump and that victory after this.
Oof, what a day. Time for that face mask. Leave the face mask on for 2 minutes. 2 minutes? That's not even enough time for it to work. I can't even send an email in 2 minutes or make a cup of coffee.
With Santam, 2 minutes is enough to insure your car online. When you're fully protected with the expert insurer, you're free to live in the moment, not in the worry. Santam. This is freedom. Santam is an authorized FSP, a licensed non-life insurer and controlling company for its group companies.
There's never a dull moment when South Africa share the cricket field with India. Africa takes on Asia at the battleground of Kingsmead in Durban. What is summer without cricket? Catch the thrilling first T20 international action between South Africa and India on Friday, 8 November at 4:30 p.m. Live on SABC3 and 5 p.m. on Radio 2000, with reports on various SABC radio stations. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Our role must be to seek to build a better world.
SAFM invites you to our annual public lecture, delivered by former Minister Dr. Naledi Pandor. The theme for the lecture is 30 Years of South African Freedom, reimagining South Africa's democracy, achievements, challenges, and the road ahead in protecting our democratic gains. The lecture will take place on the 21st of November 2024 at the Birchwood Hotel and Conference Center. Secure your seat by emailing us at info@safm.co.za.
Today, I'm part of seeking to build a better South Africa.
SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
For years, Outsurance has been saying they'll save you money on your car insurance, or you can ask for 500 Rand or 1,500 Rand cash if they don't. Here's Fundi, 46 from Brackenfell.
I was not happy with what I was paying. I heard about the 500
500 rand from Outsurance, but they give me lesser amount for my car. I'm paying 523 rand on my 2013 Hyundai iX35.
So here's how it works. SMS out to 30754. We'll give you a no-obligation car insurance quote. If the quote is less than you're currently paying, you'll end up saving money on your car insurance every month. And if it's more than you're currently paying, you can ask for 500 rand. And if you've been with the same insurer and claim-free for 3 years or more, tell us you want 1,500 rand.
Give Outsurance a call. It's a win-win. You can't lose.
SMS out to 30754 now. That's out to 30754. Outsurance is a licensed insurer and FSP. T's, C's and limits apply. Premiums are risk profile dependent and reviewed annually. Client comments do not constitute financial advice.
Right, make a note of this, right, and just be aware of it. The Passenger Rail Agency of South Africa, PRASA, well, they reopening passenger rail lines that were severely affected by the infrastructure damage and cable theft. So 31 now out of 40 priority lines are now fully operational. 266 stations are functional in cities around the country, and the Gibela Train Factory has manufactured 246 trains, and half of these are already being utilized by PRASA, which has completed now 35 million passenger trips across different regions to date. So the theme is doing more together, building better infrastructure and delivering efficient service through collaboration. And this message is brought to you by the National Department of Transport.
The National Pulse, weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
Right, let's talk about another message, and this message comes from Donald Trump. He's, some may say, he's the leader of the free world. No, we can have a big argument if I agree with that, just making the point, right? You know that conversation, right? But we know he's been elected the 47th now President of the United States. He's made some comments, of course. One of them is talking about a strong, safe, and prosperous America.
Elected your 47th President and your 45th President. And every citizen, I will fight for you, for your family, and your future. Every single day I will be fighting for you, and with every breath in my body, I will not rest until we have delivered the strong, safe, and prosperous America that our children deserve and that you deserve. This will truly be the golden age of America. That's what we have to have. This is a magnificent victory for the American people that will allow us to make America great again. And in addition to having won the battleground states of North Carolina, I love these places, Georgia, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, we are now winning in Michigan, Arizona, Nevada, and Alaska, which would result in us carrying at least 315 electoral votes. But it's much easier doing what the networks did or whoever called it, because there was no other path.
Okay, remember 4 years ago, who would have thought when Trump lost that election and then contested it and wanted to pursue a legal case and then effectively endorsed, if not incited, his supporters to storm Capitol Hill, who would have thought that he'll be re-elected the President of the United States once again? However, politics being politics, he's now called for the divisions of the past 4 years to be, put on one side.
Nothing will stop me from keeping my word to you, the people. We will make America safe, strong, prosperous, powerful, and free again. And I'm asking every citizen all across our land to join me in this noble and righteous endeavor. That's what it is. It's time to put the divisions of the past 4 years behind us. It's time to unite. And we're going to try. We have to try. And it's going to happen. Success will bring us together. I've seen that. I saw that in the first term. When we became more and more successful, people started coming together. Success is going to bring us together, and we are going to start by all putting America first. We have to put our country first for at least a period of time. We have to fix it. because together we can truly make America great again for all Americans. So I want to just tell you what a great honor this is. I want to thank you. I will not let you down. America's future will be bigger, better, bolder, richer, safer, and stronger than it has ever been before. God bless you, and God bless America. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Right, there's been widespread congratulations, understandably so, including from South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa. I mean, that's the way it normally works anyway, right? But here's an interesting one from the former UK Prime Minister, Boris Johnson.
Huge congratulations to Donald Trump on his historic victory. I think he's done it because he's shown in the past that he's capable of taking strong and decisive action, and I have no doubt that is what he is now going to do at home and abroad, whether in the Middle East or in Ukraine.
So here's a thought, and I don't know the answer, right? I do know the USA, like South Africa, you cannot run for more than 2 successive terms. So if, 2 terms, South Africa 10 years, USA 8 years. But in this case here, Trump ran for 4 years, then didn't run, and now another 4 years. So can he run for another 4 years after this one, considering it won't be 2 successive terms? That's point one. And point two, do you know anybody in the history of the USA who's done this, where win, lose, win? Give me a lesson, I'd like to know. Let's get the news. Here's Ondela Imbana.
Thank you, Ashraf. Top stories at 4. Ramaphosa congratulates Trump on his victory, and Port of Mossel Bay under construction. For SAFM News, I am Ondela Imbana, and a very good afternoon. President Cyril Ramaphosa has joined world leaders to congratulate Donald Trump following his victory in the U.S. presidential elections. Trump defeated Kamala Harris of the Democrats in the polls. Ramaphosa says he looks forward to continuing the close and mutually beneficial partnership with the U.S. and South Africa. Kylie Kumalo has more.
President Cyril Ramaphosa says he looks forward to South Africa taking over the G20 presidency, where they will work closely with the U.S., who will succeed Pretoria as the next chair of the Global Forum in 2026. Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed has also congratulated Trump, saying he's keen to strengthen relationship between Ethiopia and the US, while former British Prime Minister Boris Johnson says this has been an amazing victory and Trump will make America strong at home and abroad. Kylie Kumalo, SABC News, Johannesburg.
The Free State Health Department has dispatched environmental health practitioners to Welkom to investigate an incident where 38 children from Daluvuyo Primary School fell ill. An additional 12 learners were subsequently also found to have been affected. A total of 37 learners were rushed to Bongani Hospital after eating snacks and sweets. It is not clear if the other 12 learners were also treated in hospital. Parents of one learner took the child to a private hospital. Provincial Health Department spokesperson Mondli Mvambi.
These children are suspected to have consumed cookies with tablets inside. The 37 children have been seen at Bongani Regional Hospital and they were released home with medication. Their parents are advised to immediately bring them back should any of their conditions change for further treatment.
The Democratic Alliance in Gauteng is calling for a multidisciplinary team to be formed in response to the spate of child deaths as a result of consuming contaminated food purchased at spaza shops. In recent weeks, 6 young children from Soweto, 1 from Alexandra and 3 Katlehong have died after eating contaminated food allegedly bought from local spaza shops. The DA's Krazen Bosch says the recent food-related tragedies should be regarded as murder and the police should be led to the task team to bring perpetrators to book.
The province has seen a sharp increase in food poisoning cases involving children over the last few months who consume food bought from spaza shops. If this poisoning is deliberate, it must be seen as murder, or in some cases, attempted murder. This is not a food safety issue. We believe that this is a criminal matter, and this is why urgent action to form this multidisciplinary task team is required.
The port of Mossel Bay in the Garden Route region of the Western Cape is undergoing a R1 billion upgrade to increase its trade and tourism functionality. It is currently the smallest of the 8 ports in the country, and Transnet wants to launch several new projects to benefit Mossel Bay and the entire region. It's expected to be completed by 2030. Acting Port Manager Captain Vania Klut says the projects include the upgrade of the shipway infrastructure, new commercial properties like restaurants, as well as new cruise ship reception.
So it includes a multi-purpose terminal where we're looking at expanding our deepest quay in the port, Quay 4, to the outside, to the north of the port. So we're looking at expanding that and deepening to cater for the bigger cruise liners that visits the port of Mossel Bay, as well as increasing the various vessels that visit the port in terms of importing and exporting of products.
The urgent court application with regard to the prison conditions of 2 accused in the Senzo Meyiwa trial will be heard on Friday at the High Court in Pretoria. Accused number 3, Mthobisi Mncube, and accused number 5, Fisokuhle Ntuli, have been complaining about what they say are unfavorable conditions, including being kept in solitary confinement at the Kgosi Mampuru prison in Pretoria. Today, the court only dealt with access for media coverage. Pearl Makubane reports.
Mthobisi Mncube and Fisokuhle Ntuli are part of the 5 accused of the murder of Meyiwa. They have been incarcerated at the Kgosi Mampuru C-Max prison. However, their lawyers say they have been in solitary confinement, which not only has infringed on their human rights, but also their mental wellness. The urgent application comes after the judge presiding over the murder case, Rata Mokgotleng, advised that they submit the urgent application to the High Court so that grievances can be heard and dealt with. That application is expected to be heard this Friday. Pilma Kubane, SABC News, High Court in Pretoria.
Recapping the top story, President Cyril Ramaphosa has joined world leaders to congratulate Donald Trump following his victory in the U.S. presidential elections. Trump defeated Kamala Harris of the Democrats in the polls. I am Ondalambana for SAFM News. Headlines at 4:30.
Coming up in sports, the Sawa Proteas to face India in thrilling T20 clash at St. George's Park Cricket Stadium. Van Dijk sets sides on the upcoming Africa Netball Cup, and McIlroy hopes that Donald Trump election victory helps end Gulf Rift. More details at 4:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the N3 northbound in Lindbro Park has a crash reported before Marlborough Drive. The M1 southbound is slow moving through Crown Interchange towards Boysons, and Santon Drive westbound is slow moving towards Winnie Mandela Drive. In KZN, the N3 westbound in Pinetown has a crash reported after Marion Hill Toll Plaza. The N3 southbound has a truck crash recovery reported near Van Rieenen Town. Traffic is stacked. Umgeni Road westbound is slow moving through Springfield Park, and the R102 is slow moving through Mount Moriah. In Cape Town, the M3 southbound queuing towards Rhodes Drive. The M5 northbound is slow moving towards the N1 Kuburg interchange. The M7 Jakes Havel Drive southbound queuing towards the R300 highway, and the N1 outbound slow moving towards Yeptiaga Avenue. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
16 teams of Mzansi Africa's Elite League are back to the battlefield. Ngamandla Masha. They all believe ukuthi kuzoba right, kube bright, as they navigate the path to the final. This is the second edition of the Carlin Knockout Cup. Fagukesi. Catch the unmatched passion and drama of Ipola Lasemzansi, the Carlin Knockout Cup, live on SABC1 and SABC radio stations. Also available everywhere for everyone, always on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
So I've been asking you one word to describe Donald Trump's election victory, and there's been many. Okay, very few complimentary. I must tell you, there's another one. But I've just seen them. Someone said disgusting. I got that earlier. In fact, I just lost this one, but I will get to that. Okay, here's another one. Disaster. One word, disaster. And people are WhatsApping, which is great. 0614 104 107, and many are posting on social media, Facebook as well as Twitter. Keep it going. Just tag SAFM Radio and tag me, Ashraf Garda. Your one word to describe the re-election, in this case, of Donald Trump. Now, the U.S. president. Wow. Interesting indeed. I want to read some of the tweets from some of the world leaders just now, but let's get to one of the issues that I think is really important back home, and it concerns what happened yesterday and the response from the COSATU, the Congress of South African Trade Unions. So with me is Zanele Sabela, the COSATU national spokesperson. Zanele, I appreciate your time. Thanks for connecting to the National Pulse.
Hi there, Ashraf. So lovely to be with you.
Much appreciated, right? So, okay, the context of why we're talking to you, we spoke yesterday to the team from AfriForum, together with other political parties. They were protesting around the Bella Bill, in between, the Freedom Monument, I understand, and the Voortrekker Monument, right? Freedom Park, that is, between the two. And that's one part of it, which is clearly their right. Many others expressed some concern, first of all, about just how the colours seem to have played out in terms of people wearing orange, which is very much the AfriForum colours, to others wearing blue and others wearing white. And when you put them all side to side, they look like they were the colours of the South African flag. That's one thing. But I understand there's another issue because there was also what is called the Feel Clear flag. And you, COSATU, you have a particular position on what you saw that you didn't like. So tell me about it.
So we, like you said, we acknowledge and we respect every citizen's right to protest. We've gone out just last month, we went out on to protest as COSATU. So we have nothing against that. They have the right to protest. But what was really concerning was to actually see someone in the protest actually waving the apartheid flag, the Transvaal flag, to be sure. And so that was very worrying because you know that the Equality Court actually in 2019 actually did make a ruling on this to say the gratuitous, that's the word, display of the apartheid flag is actually, amounts to hate speech and racial discrimination and shouldn't be done unless it's for artistic, academic, and journalistic reasons, or in the public interest. And I don't think yesterday qualified as any of those. And so it was really concerning, especially since the DA, AfriForum, and Solidarity have been very adamant that this protest against the Bella Bill as it stands has nothing to do with race and has something to do with them preserving their culture as Afrikaner.
Okay, so let's take the one person. So it's not even the South African, the old apartheid flag. There was this Transvaal Feel Clear flag, I understand, right? But what is your problem with the one person carrying it? And I'm just saying that because one of the downsides of a march, right, it is incredibly difficult, all sorts of marches, for people to control a march, if you get my point, okay? So if it's one person, but it's not the leadership, right, who just happens to pull out a flag, is that a big concern for you? Keeping in mind that it's difficult to control. I mean, you would know through your own marches.
It is a big concern because once we say nothing and we let it happen, another march, because he obviously had this perception that it was okay to come through with that flag, and this was a particular place where he could do that. It's not okay, and we shouldn't just keep quiet and watch it happen, because next time, like you say, there was one, but next time there'll be 5, and before we know it, it will get out of hand, and we would know, because, we get penalized. I mean, you've seen how we've had marches, but we haven't of recent seen those displays where things are trashed and there's a lot of vandalism. That doesn't happen because when we do that, we actually get fined and we have to pay back the money to fix the property that has been damaged. So it can't be that just this one person, that one person looked kind of young, but why is he getting this very misguided impression that he can get away with something like that? And also, it's quite concerning for someone that young to think that he could. And it's not just that. There were two other individuals that I saw, but then this was obviously all on X because, couldn't have been at the march. There were two elderly people who were wearing T-shirts that actually represented the flag and were actually the flag. They actually had the old South African flag on them. So this is worrying. And when you think that in that space, it's not the leaders, but people are obviously getting the wrong idea about what it is that the DA, AfriForum, and Solidarity are trying to do.
So help us understand this. Are you expressing your concern about that one person who carried the Field Clear flag, or are you concerned about the other broader issue, which is the way these protesters were standing together? They were not carrying any flags, but because of the different color coding that they had in their march, some were orange, some were white, some were blue. Well, you can see the connection is pretty obvious. Were you concerned about that part at all?
No, until you mentioned it, I didn't quite connect those dots. So that's the other thing. I mean, if that was a coordinated thing that was allowed to happen, that let's do it this way, that is also a concern. And now that goes directly to the leaders of the march. And also the other thing that, we are wondering about in terms of this vociferous, opposition to the Bella Bill. We're wondering why there's storm in a teacup, because the bill as it stands, it says, because how they express it is to say that you're taking away the power from the school governing body, and you're giving it to the provincial education department. But that's not it. School governing bodies will still have the power to draft their language and admissions policies as the bill stands. It's just that it needs to be looked at. The provincial education department, the head of, will have final approval to make sure that, there aren't any.
Okay. All right. I do understand that. I mean, that's another issue. Of course, we've spoken to educationists about that too, right? As opposed to somebody from Labour. In terms of your opposition now to this Field Clear flag, you actually calling on what? The SA Human Rights Commission to take action?
Yes, we're calling for that. Yes, we are, because, I mean, that ruling of the Equality Court was very clear that anyone who is seen to be waving the flag or displaying it gratuitously should actually be fined or be given community service.
Okay, and that call, is that going to be a formal protest? I mean, are you writing a letter, or are you just echoing it, amplifying it on air?
We are defying it on air, but if it needs to be a formal complaint that we lodge, we will do so.
Yeah. And by the way, I'm considering where you come from COSATU, very much a partner of the ANC, who are very much partners in the GNU. Would it not be easier to just effectively, to be blunt, pick up a phone and tell members of the DA, for example, besides AfriForum, to say, hey, we don't like what you did?
Yeah. So it is. The government wasn't the one that was, marching yesterday. It was actually the DA, AfriForum, and Solidarity. So that is different. It's like if you said that, the ANC, COSATU, and the SACP were marching, therefore you must call the GNU directly. That's not quite.
I mean, I hear you, but clearly, on the other hand, the ANC has to be in the same WhatsApp group as the DA, and you have to be in the same WhatsApp group as the ANC.
What are you trying to say, Ashraf?
I'm just saying sometimes it may just take a quick call. I'm just looking at short-circuiting to say, come on, maybe you guys are insensitive here. Don't do this again.
Oh, no. When we're speaking to you like this, Ashraf, it's so that any person who's listening to this is also aware. Any other person who thought that the march yesterday was an opportunity to be displaying the flag and doing all those things should also get the message. So if we speak just amongst ourselves, that message will be lost.
Okay, appreciate you giving up.
Keep these things in check.
Perfect. Thank you for giving up your time. Much appreciated. Lots to learn from that conversation, certainly around that march of yesterday, that protest around the Bella Bill, but who was there as well. In fact, there was a well-known singer who has had big issues in terms of his expressing his support for a certain ideology, and I wonder if you can pick out those names as well. Zanele Sabela, thanks for your time, the national spokesperson for COSATU.
Lina Lakake Tlampokekana, I'm from Mamelodi Sundowns captain. I'm a sports analyst la go SABC Sport. When I'm home, I try by all means to practice cooking. My favorite home cooked meal, I'll go for pap and masonja because I can prepare that with easy. What do I normally get up to when I get a moment to myself? Or I would easily, play my guitar. I try to practice a lot of Tracy Chapman. My favorite foreign language is French. Bonjour. So if I didn't play beautiful football, I think I was gonna be a baseball player. What do I like about SABC Sport is the fact that we given an opportunity to educate.
Catch the exciting Diski analysis by Sompo Long Range Kekana on match days live on Latuma. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Our role must be to seek to build a better world.
SAFM invites you to our annual public lecture, delivered by former Minister Dr. Naledi Pandor. The theme for the lecture is 30 Years of South African Freedom, reimagining South Africa's democracy, achievements, challenges, and the road ahead in protecting our democratic gains. The lecture will take place on the 21st of November 2024 at the Birchwood Hotel and Conference Center. Secure your seat by emailing us at info@safm.co.za.
Today, I'm part of seeking to build a better South Africa.
SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
Across South Africa, online and on radio. SAFM, let's talk.
Well, let's certainly talk, and let's give us your thoughts on what are the biggest issues that moves the national pulse. And it's not just the U.S. election, because that's very much a global punch, global pulse, right? But what about things in South Africa? And need I say there are big issues around what's happening with our neighbors, Mozambique, and that naturally has a spillover. Remember, there was that election recently where it's been contested, and since then there has been protest after protest, okay? And that's been a big concern. So let's find out more about what's happened today with Dr. Michael Mashapato, the Border Management Authority Commissioner. Dr. Mashapato, good connecting with you on the National Pulse.
Good afternoon.
Okay, I understand as we talk to you, I mean, we were going to speak about just the broader issue of election unrest and which borders are closed and which are not. I understand one of the breaking stories we've now got is that a group of Mozambicans, they chanted outside the border gate and they've pushed it open, forcing the police to retaliate. Can you give us an update on that?
Yeah, so actually we really had a bit of a challenge earlier, and this is primarily for the Mozambicans who are effectively wanting to go back home from the South African side. So on that basis, we are working on the situation. We are also looking at the possibility of opening the port for some few minutes or hour, just to make sure that we process those Mozambicans who are wishing to go back home. So that is basically the situation that we are at now. There has been that bit of pressure for people wanting to actually return that side. But in terms of the full opening of the port, it is still very much volatile on the Mozambican side, based on the report we get from our colleagues. And on that basis, we are not able to fully, open the port, as it were, particularly for cargo movement.
Okay, so this to confirm, I mean, we're talking about the Lebombo border, right? So would you say that what happened today is isolated, or are you expecting repeats of those type of issues, and therefore bigger management control of that particular port?
Yeah, we wouldn't say it is isolated. It is related to this kind of development. I mean, you'll remember even during COVID, when we had incidences where we had to close the port. I mean, one of the points at Beit Bridge, we had a lot of, Zimbabweans at the time wanting to come through and all of those, and it became a bit chaotic. So we are fairly experienced in as far as those kind of issues are concerned. and we are managing the situation as it were. As we speak now, I'm actually on the way. I will be at Libombo in the next 30 minutes or so, and the intention is to be able to engage with our colleagues from the Mozambican side to be able to make determinations as to when can we really open the port.
Okay. What impact, therefore, is the closure of the port having on people on both sides?
No, the impact is very much huge, Ashraf. I think you'll remember the fact that we process between 1,500 to 2,000 trucks via Libombo into Maputo port on a daily basis, carrying chrome to the port for exportation. So that is a very serious impact. So that is why we still have even trucks that are still on the corridor for this particular purpose, as it were. So on that basis, we have kind of advised the freight forwarders to, in the meantime, divert the cargo to Richards Bay or even to Durban, whilst we are actually dealing with this particular situation. So at the end of the day, Ashraf, regardless of the impact in terms of trade, but security becomes fundamental. We cannot just allow people to cross into an environment that is very much unsecure, to the extent that the trucks can end up being banned and all of those kind of issues. That is why we become very much careful in this particular instance in terms of what we need to be doing.
Now, I know at the time of the Mozambican election, there were concerns not just so much of people just protesting and not accepting the election, and maybe not just knocking a border gate or two down, but actually storming South Africa in big numbers out of sheer desperation. Do you think that's possible?
You see, when people, for example, they run away from a very volatile situation that becomes very much dangerous, and they will want to come to South Africa for refugee purposes, that one it is provided for, even in terms of international protocol. So it's not a problem. Once we have that kind of an incident, we are able to process the people, we are able to deal with that accordingly. So up to this point, we don't have that situation. The only situation we have is around 8 of the officials from the Mozambican side who yesterday were being threatened by the protesters on the Mozambican side working at the port. And these are the people whose vehicles got touched and all of those. These are the ones that we had to allow them on the South African side for the purposes of their protection, but not necessarily in the processing of refugees per se. It was just a gesture to address an insecurity at the time, as it were. But in terms of ordinary Mozambicans, we don't have that situation yet.
I understand. Okay. Is there anything else you'd like to add to our conversation, an important issue that you'd like to amplify?
Yeah, maybe what we can amplify currently, Ashraf, is that if there are South Africans who would like to exit Mozambique, primarily on the basis of the volatile situation on their equivalent of N4 on the Mozambican side, we don't advise them to come through towards Libombo. It is very much unsafe. So they better actually go to Kosi Bay, which is the port towards the ocean into northern KZN, and they can be able to enter the country. Those ones that might be on the country, they can go up into Goriondo as well as Pafuri to be able to enter South Africa on that other side. Otherwise, we do not advise anybody to intend to travel around Libombo because it is very much unsecure. We should be able to communicate back to South Africans and any other traveler as to the time we will be ready to get the activities reopened at the port, and we should be able to communicate that accordingly.
Okay, great. I tell you what, when you have some news, either with an interview, otherwise even just connect with us and just do a WhatsApp, a voice note, so we can share with the listeners who are obviously traveling in between those two countries. So appreciate your time, Dr. Michael Masiapato, the Border Management Authority Commissioner. Basically, bottom line is saying, as far as the Libombo port is, it's a no-go at this point in time. Don't take a chance. It is effectively too dangerous. Let's get to some of your voice notes. Don't take a chance on Trump. You're going to be joking. People have taken it.
Ashraf is Shangele here from Cape Town. I like Trump because he's not buying faces, unlike South African government.
What does that mean? He's not buying faces. There's predictably lots of comment on Trump.
Victory. My word is victory. I think Trump will now get a chance to get back at all those who were trying to do him dirty when he was out of office. This is Vusi from the Northern Cape. Thanks. Bye.
Okay, Vusi saying victory, but you're not telling us what you feel about the victory. Victory, I get it.
Hey, Ashraf, I just think that one has got nothing to do with the other. So in terms of what Trump has done and those that are disgusted. So I don't think it has to do with the other. I mean, you can look at South Africans. If they had an opportunity, well, some or many had an opportunity to vote for Jacob Zuma again, what do you think they will do? With all the allegations that have been made and unproven. Thanks, it's Bongi.
Thank you, Bongi. Well, the fact is people do that. That's exactly the point, isn't it? So, Rich in Durban, go ahead. What's your point?
Ashraf, yes. You asked one way on both sides. On Trump's side, it's madness. that people could actually elect Trump. On Kamala's side, and the Democratic Party, it's a colossal defeat. In fact, it exposes Ashraf, the fact that the Democrats lose to Trump twice.
Yeah.
It's an indictment on them. And their main problem is this: they ignore their electorate, their constituencies. They are a big donor party. Well, both of them are, but the difference between the Democrats and the Republicans try at least to do what their constituencies want. The Democrats listen to big donor. If you look at it, Kamala Harris wouldn't differentiate herself from Biden. Biden kept and enhanced the policies that Trump implemented before Biden came into office. They were criticizing that when Biden took over, he practiced those things. You talk about the border, the southern border.
Yeah.
He did that. China policy.
All right. Rich, I need to move on only because we're on to news time. I appreciate your points. Well, and I think you're right that Kamala Harris topped the money collection bill, but it's not enough. I mean, ultimately, she spoke the same language as the person she replaced, and how convincing would that be? Clearly not enough, isn't it? And the big question, therefore, is if you couldn't beat Trump now, when would you ever beat him? Think about that. Ondela Imbana is here with the news headlines. It's 4:30.
Thank you, Ashraf. News headlines. IPID in the Western Cape says 9 police officers, including 2 Hawks members, have been identified for disciplinary action in the case of murdered anti-gang unit detective Charles Kinia. 4 learners from Daluvuyo Primary School in Welkom in the Free State will remain at the Bongani Hospital with suspected food poisoning. They were part of a group of 37 who were taken to the hospital. And the Northern Cape Basic Education Department MEC Abraham Poslu has called on parents, legal guardians and management at schools to be vigilant and monitor what learners are consuming. Our full update follows at the top of the hour with Gregory Ghoos.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the N1 southbound in Eldorado Park has a crash reported on the link to the N12 Potchefstroom Highway. Grayston Drive in Sandton has delays towards the M1 Highway, and Old Johannesburg Road in Centurion has a crash reported between Eupheus Road and Snake Valley Road. In KZN, Victoria Embankment eastbound has roadworks reported with traffic restrictions near the Yacht Club exit. The R102 is slow moving through Mount Moriah, and on the N3 truck crash recovery near Van Rieenen Town, traffic is stacked. In Cape Town, the M5 southbound is slow moving towards Racecourse Road exit, the M7 Jakes Havel Drive southbound queuing towards the R300 highway, and the N1 outbound slow moving towards Jeptiaga Avenue. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Khapele.
All right, Tumi, you got some news about cricket.
Yes, the Proteas take on India in the highly anticipated Wonder Cement T20 International Series this weekend. This match marks the second of 4 T20 encounters in the series, and the series kicks off with that first match at the Kingsmead Stadium in Durban on Friday. Cricket fans can also look forward to the return of international Test cricket to St. George's Cricket Stadium from the 5th to the 9th of December, when South Africa face Sri Lanka, and ticket price are between R110 and and 250 available at Ticket Pro and the stadium. Elsewhere, Tottenham Hotspur will be bidding to maintain their perfect start in the Europa League this season when they head to Istanbul tomorrow to face Galatasaray, that is spearheaded by Lone Star Victor Osimhen. Now, the Nigerian moved to the Turkish side on loan early in September after being frozen out at Napoli, and Galatasaray failed to qualify for the Champions League proper after losing over 2 legs to Young Boys in August, leaving them instead in the Europa League. Then in netball, Spar Proteas head coach Jenny van Dijk reveals that she's shifting her focus on the Africa Netball Cup preparations. The netball team wrapped up a 3-0 clean sweep against Malawi with a 69-24 victory in the final test of the Spar Challenge Netball Series hosted at the Ellis Park Arena over the weekend. With the Africa Cup just a month away, Van Dijk has confirmed that she will be hosting virtual sessions with the players to keep them in motion ahead of the African showpiece.
We, in this month, we will travel remotely and go to the players and work hard, because in our next challenge, we'll play the Africa Cup in Swakopmund from the 8th to the 15th of December. I think what I've heard is that Uganda and Malawi will both be there, so this is a very important competition for us, and obviously taking on Uganda after we've lost against them in the Commonwealth and the World Cup is an important priority for us. It's important that we close that gap and that we perform well against them. In saying that, I don't think it's going to be easy at all, but we are preparing ourselves for a very difficult contest.
Then in golf, Rory McIlroy says that President Donald Trump's return to the White House could clear the way for a peace deal between the PGA Tour and Saudi Public Investment Fund. A few months ago, McIlroy says said that the U.S. Department of Justice was one of the main obstacles to the deal, but having Trump, who's an avid golfer and who's also for Live Golf, back in the office could influence the priorities of the DOJ and help get a deal across the line. It'll be interesting to see that happen if it actually does happen. With that said, it's a wrap from my side for now. I'll have more in the next hour.
Okay, so getting ready for the cricket season now, eh? Like
yes.
Proper.
And interesting to see how India will do. It's a new look India without the likes of Virat Kohli and the likes.
And you still like that phrase? I don't like cricket, I love it.
I love it.
Okay.
I love cricket.
Just checking.
I love cricket.
Right, just checking. Would you sit for 5 days at a test match? I used to do it when I was a lighty.
Absolutely.
But okay, you would. All right, okay. Would you sit for 5 days at a cricket test match, or even 2-3 full days out of the 5, because it only finishes in 3 days now and it doesn't go 5? Would you do that? I'd love to know. Or are you now completely spoiled by watching not even 50 over cricket, but 20 over cricket? Let me know. Seriously, let me know. 0614 104 107 voice notes, or to call in 086 000 2032.
16 teams of Mzansi Africa's Elite League are back to the battlefield. Namanda Masha. They all believe Okutukusoba right, Kube bright, as they navigate the path to the final. This is the second edition of the Carlin Knockout Cup. Fagukesi. Catch the unmatched passion and drama of Ipola Mzansi. The Carlin Knockout Cup, live on SABC 1 and SABC radio stations. Also available everywhere for everyone, always on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
These are the weekend shows on SAFM. Music of Africa with Shayla Ndikumana. The Jet Set Breakfast with Michelle Constant. Seasons with Khomotso KG Mweketsi. The Soundtrack of Your Life with Ernest Pillay. Weekend Soundowner Classics with Kutlwano Masote. Sportlight with Zai Khan. The Weekend with John Gerika. Rhythm of Africa with Shayla Ndikumana. This is SAFM.
SAFM. Prime time all day long.
Okay, let's get some more voice notes. And what about your one word that best describes? Don't tell me the result. I know who won. I want to know what you feel about it. Just one word, what you feel about Donald Trump effectively defeating Kamala Harris and the Democrats to win that U.S. election.
Good day, SFM and SFM listeners. We're now in USA elections. I say the voters, they voted for Trump, not because he's a good leader, because there was no one who raised their hands to say, vote for me, I'm good. They just went for the devil they know better than Harris, but my heart is so I wanted Harris to win.
You wanted Harris to win, that was your heart, but clearly the heart didn't follow. Let's get another thing, something much closer to home.
Ashraf, is Malcolm here in Cape Town. I listened to the lady in Kusatu speaking. This AfriForum is the first time that they've had a march since 1994. The first time. All the other chaos and marches that we had was Kusatu and.
Wait, I think it's just frozen on Kusatu.
Everybody else. She's not worried about one person wearing a flag? Why don't we worry about the unemployment that is so high? Can't we rather focus on stuff like that? Make it a positive thing, man. Everybody, I'm an Afrikaans speaking person. There's more non-white speaking Afrikaans than white Boer people. So yeah, Malcolm here in Cape Town, bye-bye.
Thanks, Michael. But I think they're two different issues, actually. I mean, the issue of the Bella Bill is one part of it, but they protesting against the field clear flag that was on display by one person at the march. That's really the issue. Does that concern you, or does that not bother you at all? They believe that falls foul of the human rights in South Africa in terms of the Constitution, and they want to therefore take it to the South African Human Rights Commission. Do they have a point? That's the bottom line.
Success bring us together. Donald Trump plus Elon Musk equals to success. I thank you, Ivan Pumalang.
Donald Trump and Elon Musk was the main campaign manager. He really, really was. I have to say, I want to just repeat what I've said before. That people asked me yesterday and the other day, is like, who would you vote for? And I've made the point that really I'm not close to any of the parties. First of all, I'm not American, okay? But you can't deny that America's meddling in world politics cannot be washed away. And there are hundreds of examples of that. So I'll repeat what forget me, Chris Landsman, I hope he's listening. He knows this. I often repeat it from UJ. He says the problem with the USA is America is a democracy at home and a dictatorship abroad. That is the core of how I interpret what they do, and that is why you can't be loving towards them. Whoever gets into power, they effectively prop up a system. Let's get more comment. Lenius in Bushbuck Ridge. Hi.
Yes, Ashraf, good morning also to the listeners.
Yeah, you can say good morning to the Americans because they didn't sleep all night.
Yeah, Americans, yes.
Go ahead.
Good afternoon to ourselves. I think, Ashraf, the win of Donald Trump has been orchestrated by the Democratic Party itself. Because I'm sure many of you will remember what it was called the Roy Gevaar here in South Africa. And Kamala Harris has been actually driving a point of the possible election of Donald Trump as a Roy Gevaar. And it looks like that has not worked with Americans.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I hear about the Roy Gevaar. In fact, someone has also said that you can't discount the Democratic Party's perceived move towards a more conservative line in terms of effectively being a more right-wing line, if I can put it that way, in terms of a more warming up of relations with Israel and how that played out, not for me because I'm not a voter, how that played out with the voters made a significant dent in that voting potential electorate that could well have had an impact on the final results. Colin in Cape Town, go for it.
Good afternoon. Ashraf,
yep.
I wonder what this is going to do now with Trump, because I remember a couple of months ago the Republicans were talking about giving a thought to the AGOA, South Africa and America, and cutting ties or cutting support for the HIV and AIDS in Africa and South Africa on account of corruption and things like that. That was Donald Trump's party were talking about things like that. So I wonder how's it going to affect us. You must. It's a wonder you haven't got anybody to talk about AGOA.
Well, I mean, we will develop that. We'll have further conversations in the next few days. But I can tell you what, I mean, this has just happened now, as you know, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, what we will do, what I can tell you, Colin, is, and this is perhaps one of the misconceptions. You have in America, you got the presidency. You also have the Senate, right? Some decisions like AGOA is done by the Congress. It's certainly not done by Donald Trump on its own in the same way.
Yeah.
So those that think that he's the president now, he can do what he wants, in the same way, like in South Africa, you can't just do what you want. There are checks and balances, or you have to convince the Congress, or they must be convinced enough. And I do know that the Senate now has also moved towards the Democratic Party, so the Republican Party rather. So sometimes, very often in U.S. politics, you have an American leader who's from one party and the Senate from another party. This time you got both, and they won the popular vote. So actually, they've come across very, very strongly. How it finally plays out, Colin, well, listen tomorrow. We'll see. All right, thank you for that. Let's get to another. In fact, what we'll do, we'll get to further calls just now. But your one word is most welcome. As always, one word to describe your thoughts and feelings about the victory of Donald Trump. Tell me what it is. You can also tweet it out. But also WhatsApp, quick ones, text messages are great, 0614 104 107. Right, we do have slightly delayed Makwe Masilela, who's the Chief Investment Officer at Makwe Fund Managers, coming up right after this.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
Right, Makwe, you've got some thoughts on, first of all, local and global markets. I'm looking at South Africa, American election year, and then Pepcor's yearly results.
Yeah, afternoon to you. Yeah, Pepco, the guys managed to capture additional market share in clothing, cellular, and home. Group revenue up 7.8%, with fintech revenue up 26.8%, and they had an impairment of 2.7 billion because of continued uncertainty when it comes to retail markets, driven by the performance in garments, though it's now recovering, and challenging footwear market impacting performance of the Take It Down in Shoe City, resulting in cautious outlook, and their normalized headline earnings per share up 15%. And yes, we didn't expect the election results this early, and so far markets reaction is clear and straightforward. This is Trump 2.0, it is here, and Trump's tariffs and immigration policies are seen as inflationary, lifting the dollar, and the rand unfortunately started the session almost 2.4% a week, and Bitcoin also climbing as Trump is seen as more actively supportive of cryptocurrencies, and Trump's proposal could potentially limit how far U.S. interest rates might be lowered, but markets are still confident that tomorrow we are getting that 25 basis point cut, and we saw a slew of trades around the world tied to Trump's victory, going up, stocks extending gains, treasury yields jumping, and the dollar, as we said, up the most since February 2023. And investors believe that Trump's pro-growth stance on industrial policy, corporate tax cuts, and tariffs could boost stocks and could fuel inflation. But the Chinese stocks are rattled as the guys that side are worried about tariffs, and a rising dollar unfortunately had a negative dent on oil prices, as we know that these are priced in dollars, just like many commodities. And Trump's policies, Ashraf, may further put pressure on the Chinese economy. And remember, this is the number one importer and the second biggest consumer of oil. As we're talking now, oil is down 1.8% at $74 a barrel, and the very same strong dollar took a shine of the yellow metal. Gold is down 3% at $2,665, just like platinum down 3%, and the JSE is down 1.7%, dragged mainly by our resources, which are down 4% because commodity prices are falling sharply, and the rand is down 2% against the US dollar, is now 17.74, 22.76 against the pound, and 18.96 against the euro.
Okay, perfect. Makwe Masilela, thanks for your time. We'll have another report from you tomorrow.
There's never a dull moment when South Africa share the cricket field with India. Africa takes on Asia at the battleground of Kingsmead in Durban. What is summer without cricket? Catch the thrilling first T20 international action between South Africa and India on Friday, 8 November at 4:30 p.m. Live on SABC3 and 5 p.m. on Radio 2000, with reports on various SABC radio stations. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Our role must be to seek to build a better world.
SAFM invites you to our annual public lecture, delivered by former Minister Dr. Naledi Pandor. The theme for the lecture is 30 Years of South African Freedom. Reimagining South Africa's democracy, achievements, challenges, and the road ahead in protecting our democratic gains. The lecture will take place on the 21st of November 2024 at the Birchwood Hotel and Conference Center. Secure your seat by emailing us at info@safm.co.za.
Today, I'm part of seeking to build a better South Africa.
SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
Right, make a note of this. It's like important facts for you to remember, right? Since its establishment in 1998, SANRAL expanded its national road network from 6,700 to 24,160 kilometers. That's a period of 25 years, right? So all this because it's a move towards more efficient and safer roads. At this point, SANRAL now addressing pothole challenges on the provincial and municipal road networks through Operation Vala Zonke, which is a pothole repair program. The work is done in partnership with the provincial and local government. In the 2023-24 financial year end, only just that year, 9,392 potholes have been fixed through the provincial road maintenance grant. Now, the department has transferred approximately 106.40 billion rands to the 9 provinces over a 10-year period for road quality improvements. The theme of all this is doing more together, building better infrastructure and delivering efficient service through collaboration. This message is brought to you by the National Department of Transport.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
Right, so here's a question I think for you, right? Would you as a parent sign up if there's a plan or a pledge to effectively delay giving your children smartphones before they start high school? It's a puzzling one in the light of, maybe people need to be more human on the one hand, but on the other hand, this breathtaking pace within which the need to embrace digital is that important. So Courtney Atkinson, one of the founders of SFC in South Africa, will tell us more. And SFC is an acronym I understand for Smartphone Free Childhood. Courtney, thanks for connecting with us on the National Pulse.
Hi, thank you so much for having me on the show.
Okay, lots of talk about innovation. This is innovative about not being innovative.
Well, it is quite innovative in that we're using tech as a tool to do something really great, which is kind of protect our children's childhoods, help them to develop the real-world skills that they need, so that they can one day, when they're ready and their brains are appropriately developed, embrace technology and thrive in the modern world.
So, maybe tell me what the problem is and how do you play out on the solution?
Absolutely. So 2024 has been an interesting year. There's been a lot of research that's come out as the first generation of children who've grown up on devices and with social media are now young adults. And we are facing a real mental health epidemic amongst our youth. Amongst that, we know that children are also being harmed by exposure to very, very extreme content. They are addicted to their devices, they're addicted to gaming. And there's all of this has come out kind of with real hard evidence this year. It's been beautifully put together by Dr. Jonathan Haidt in his book called The Anxious Generation. And he's made the problem really easy to understand and accessible, and it's resonated with parents around the world. The problem has really been for parents is that up until this point, we've kind of been put in this impossible position in that we can give our children smartphones and expose them to these harms and these risks and, that we now have the evidence for, or we can withhold them and they might run the risk of being alienated or ostracized by their peers. So it's really been a lose-lose position for parents and their children up until now. And what SFC is doing, and it is part of a global movement, I should mention, is that parents around the world have kind of said enough. We can see this in our own children. We don't need studies and data. We can see because we feel it ourselves. We all, most of us may have challenging relationships with our phones, with our social media. We don't feel great when we see everybody going off on these exotic holidays and their homes are Pinterest perfect and whatever. So we know that our children feel the same ways when they're exposed to those things. So by parents kind of coming together and making first of all, just being able to talk about this problem without it being judgmental. Like, this is a really tricky situation we're in, and no other generation has been in this position. Parents 10 years ago were not in this position. And as you say, it's moving so fast. There is no rule book here. So what we as parents are saying is kind of enough, and let's actually work together, because the tech is evolving at such a pace. Regulation can't keep up. Even our schools are struggling to keep up. It's really up to us as parents to make that first step. And we're bringing our schools along with us. Many of them are embracing this movement too. They see the ill effects of cyberbullying and fragmented attention spans and really age-inappropriate exposure.
So I understand the
overall, in the classroom.
So I hear that. I understand the overall problem, Courtney. I mean, we all battle with it to some degree, and yet we also feel that smartphones are just so ubiquitous. They're like a diary for your life, for just about everything you do. So, okay, having heard all of that, in terms of this pact to delay giving your children or our children smartphones, so practically, because you're talking about a digital pact, so practically, what are you implementing? What is expected of someone listening today?
Right. So we would love every primary school parent who feels in their bones that something is not right, that our kids need to learn these really important real-world skills before we introduce them to the online world, to go and sign the Parent Pact on our website, which is sfc-sa.com. .coza, I should say, sfc-sa.coza, and on there you're going to find the Digital Parent Pact. Now, the Digital Parent Pact has got all of South Africa's 18,000 primary schools loaded in the back end. So you're going to go in there, you're going to select your child's school, you're going to select their grade, and you're going to make a commitment to not give them a smartphone until high school. And this is really doable, right? Then your pact is going to lie dormant, in inverted commas. No one's going to know that you've signed this pact until 10 parents in your child's school and grade have signed alongside you. So you don't have to be that first strange parent that's a bit of an oddball and perhaps misunderstood, but to be anti-tech. You can go in there, you can sign like in comfort, and only when 10 parents sign alongside you is your pact then unlocked. And at this point, you and those other 9 parents will receive an email, and you'll be able to see which other children in the grade are also delaying. So when your child comes to you and says, "Oh, Mom, I'm the only one. I'm the only one who doesn't have a smartphone, and it's so unfair, and you're the worst parent ever," you can say, "Well, actually, here are 9 other kids who you know in your grade who also don't have smartphones, and their parents are also waiting." So it's really to try and give parents a little bit of solidarity, some support, that they can find like-minded parents, that we can kind of share this thing that we're trying to do together.
Okay. So once they sign, I mean, I just want you to I want myself to understand this too clearly. Are you saying that you will delay the use of digital until high school? Is that at home, at school, everywhere?
This is specific to giving your child their own smartphone. So SFC is not anti-tech. We really believe that tech is a very, very important tool in this modern day and age, and the children will learn how to use it just as we as adults who have not grown up on the tech are using it just fine. So the pact is specifically to not give your child their own smartphone. There is learning that happens on tablets and Chromebooks in primary schools, and we're all modern day parents. To some extent, our children are. They're watching TV or they're playing games or whatever it might be. We're not saying, interfere with that, but this is the first mindful, tangible step in line with Dr. Haight's 4 norms for healthy childhood development, which is to delay giving your child their own smartphone until high school.
Okay, here's a question. What response, if anything, have you had in terms of your conversation with schools and the departments of education? Basic, more basic than higher education, I would think. Well, basic right up to matric, right? What sort of conversations have you had with them, and what has been their response?
The school conversations are very varied. There are a number of schools who are really paving the way in this regard. We've got St. Albans, who's done remarkable things. There are various schools in Cape Town who have recently reworked, they've been proactive and reworked their phone policies. St. Cyprian's, Herschel Girls. And as parents are coming on board and they are now having conversations with their schools, in community with other parents, a lot of schools are stepping up. We've seen incredible kind of sharing from the head teachers of schools in school newsletters in support of the movement. We've seen them introduce their schools as phone-free schools to the next round of incoming, the next year of incoming learners. But on the flip side, we have had certain head teachers who've said, I can't share this, my own children have smartphones. I've got to be a good example myself. So it's, we're seeing all of it. But we have had an incredible uptake from parents in South Africa. We're a very, very new kind of movement. We kicked off in July on WhatsApp. And the idea of the WhatsApp groups is that you connect with parents in your school. So you've got an unofficial school group and you can find your parents there. And you can, in that group, have conversations that are very specific to your particular community. So it might be, we don't feel comfortable with grade 2s having their own iPads for school. What do you guys think? Should we go and approach teacher XYZ about this? It might be, we feel that the kids are gaming far too much, or I'm really finding that the kids are being left out of the class WhatsApp groups, or whatever it might be, but that your unique circumstances can be discussed with other parents in your group.
Well, that's where we can leave it. I'll certainly encourage you to, maybe tag us on SFM, on Facebook, on Twitter as well, or the X platform, so that we can certainly share that, which is an interesting way of using digital to be, or using social to be unsocial, and I'm sure you understand exactly what I mean. Courtney Atkinson, appreciate your time, one of the founders of the SFC in South Africa. It's fascinating. Smartphone-free childhood, a pact to delay children having their own smartphones, ownership of it all, until they get to high school. Would you buy into that or not? Think about it. Here's the news at 5 with Greg House.
Thank you. Ashraf, disciplinary action of a slain detective's case, and Ramaphosa congratulates Trump. Good day to you. IPID in the Western Cape says 9 police officers, including 2 Hawks members, have been identified for disciplinary action in the case of murdered anti-gang unit detective Charles Kinnear. IPID announced earlier that its reports on investigations around Kinnear's death had been declassified. Kinnear, who investigated several high-profile cases linked to the underworld in Cape Town and elsewhere in the country, was gunned down in 2020. His murder case is being heard in the Western Cape High Court. The Deputy Provincial Head of the Western Cape Directorate is Mario September.
The National Commission has committed in writing that the members that they have initiated disciplinary steps and that the process is now ongoing. So that has been committed in writing.
4 learners from a primary school in Welkom in the Free State will remain in hospital with suspected food poisoning. They were part of a group of 37 who were taken to the hospital. Another learner was taken to a private facility. It was later found that an additional 12 learners had also fallen ill and were treated. It's reported the learners bought snacks and biscuits from street vendors near the school and felt weak after consuming them. Parents were immediately called to the hospital after learners were rushed there for medical treatment. The Free State ANC Women's League's treasurer is Dikeledi Tereko.
We were called and told that we have about 49 children which were affected. They were reacting from something that they have eaten from their school, which is chivovo cakes or something like that. So we are here to support the parents, and we believe that situations like this should be avoided if municipalities could strengthen their bylaws and ensure that they are implemented. And secondly, if our district municipalities could also ensure that they enforce the environmental health and safety in
The Northern Cape Education Department's MEC has called on parents, legal guardians and management at schools to be vigilant and monitor what learners are consuming. The call comes after one learner found 2 pills inside a packet of chips they bought from a vendor outside their school premises. Department spokesperson Jeffrey van der Merwe.
The Northern Cape Department of Education is concerned about the incident which occurred yesterday at the Kennard Primary School in the ZF Mgao district. Although no one's health have been negatively affected, 2 pills were found in a packet of chips purchased outside the school premises. The incident was reported to law enforcement authorities who are conducting an investigation into the incident to determine the safety of the products being sold by the street vendors and to prevent future occurrences.
Over 450 houses have been damaged by this week's storms in KwaZulu-Natal. The Provincial Department of Cooperative Governance says the worst affected areas include the eThekwini Metro, Pietermaritzburg, Mooi River, Bergville and Newcastle. Heavy rain, strong winds and lightning has lashed several parts of the province since Sunday. COCTA spokesperson Sinzilo Mzila.
Relief efforts are ongoing, with multi-sectoral interventions involving social partners and provincial state organs such as SASSA and the Department of Social Development, playing a crucial role in assisting families. The adverse weather has also damaged 28 schools, caused structural failure to the Ezimbabwe River Bridge on the N2, leading to partial closures and traffic diversions. Health facilities in Mkondlo, Utugela and eThekwini, including Tamamhlope Hospital, Oliver's Hook Clinic and Herikwala Regional Hospital, all suffered structural damage.
President Cyril Ramaphosa has joined world leaders to congratulate Republican candidate Donald Trump following his victory in the U.S. presidential elections. Trump defeated Kamala Harris of the Democrats in the polls yesterday. Ramaphosa says he looks forward to continuing the close and mutually beneficial partnership with the U.S. and South Africa. Kaelikhle Khumalo reports.
President Cyril Ramaphosa says he looks forward to South Africa taking over the G20 presidency, where they will work closely with the US, who will succeed Pretoria as the next chair of the Global Forum in 2026. Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed has also congratulated Trump, saying he's keen to strengthen relationship between Ethiopia and the US. Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says Trump's historic return offers a new beginning for America and a powerful recommitment to the great alliance between Israel and America, while former British Prime Minister Boris Johnson says this has been an amazing victory and Trump will make America strong at home and abroad. Kaelikhle Khumalo, SABC News, Johannesburg.
The top story, IPID in the Western Cape says 9 police officers, including 2 Hawks members, have been identified for disciplinary action in the case of murdered anti-gang unit detective Charles Kania. That's SAFM News. I'm Greg Khus.
In news sports this hour, Betway Premiership prize money increase and Proteas to face India in thrilling T20 clash at St. George's Park Cricket Stadium. More details at 5:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the R55 northbound in Crawthorne has delays near Tamboti Road. Old Johannesburg Road southbound in Centurion has a crash reported between Eupheus Road and Snake Valley Road, and the N1 northbound in Pretoria slow moving towards the N4 Witbank Highway. In KZN on the N3, track crashed recovery near Van Rieenen Town. That's queuing traffic in both ways. Chris Hani Road northbound is slow moving through Breedeen, and Prospection Road is slow moving through Prospection due to traffic diverting from the N2 highway closure. In Mpumalanga on the N4 in Kamwati Poort, Limpopo border crossing is closed at the border post until further notice due to unrest and violence on the Mozambique side. In Cape Town, the N2 outbound is slow moving towards the R300 highway. The M7 Jakes Hartwell Drive southbound is queuing towards the R300 highway, and the N1 outbound slow moving towards Okavango Road. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
RB Leipzig believe every football moment counts and they want nothing but a win. Meanwhile, Borussia Mönchengladbach target 3 points as they embark on a journey to escape from the bottom half. This is the Bundesliga. Football as it's meant to be. Catch the nail-biting encounter between RB Leipzig and Borussia Mönchengladbach on Saturday 9 November at 7:30 p.m. Live everywhere for everyone. Always on SABC Plus. Also available on sabcsport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
SAFM commemorates Disability Rights Awareness Month under the theme Celebrating 30 Years of Democracy, Creating a Disability-Inclusive Society for a Better Quality of Life and the Protection of the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. SAFM supports and works tirelessly towards equity and equality for those living with disabilities. Empowerment is key. Let us break the barriers and improve the quality of life for those living with disabilities. Our tireless efforts towards a better life for those living with disabilities can only be impactful when we do so together. We do not tolerate any kind of discrimination. Disability Awareness Month 2024. Only on SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. Disability Rights Awareness Month on SAFM. The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
And so it goes, right? It's the Trump day, and Trump is trumping, or triumphant Trump, no matter which way you take it, right? And we'll continue talking about that because of the impact that it certainly has. I think the point Colin made about AGOA and other treaties, certainly Trump with regard to environmental issues, very much offside regarding that. So how would that change? Very offside regarding vaccines. Remember that around the time of COVID-19. So that could all change and play out depending on what happens between him and Senate and Congress all the way down the line. We'll chat in a few minutes' time to Dr. Lawrence Karamba. But before that, we certainly have comment from global leaders, including our President, Cyril Ramaphosa, tweeting saying congratulations to Donald Trump on your return to the presidency. I look forward to continuing the close and mutually beneficial partnership between our two nations across all domains of cooperation. In the global arena, we look forward to our presidency of the G2 in 2025, where we will work closely with the U.S. as to who will succeed us in the G20 presidency in 2026. So that's interesting. And then what about Zelensky, the leader of the Ukraine? I'm not going to read the whole thing. It's too long, saying congrats Donald Trump on his impressive election victory. I recall our great meeting with President Trump back in September when we discussed in detail the Ukraine-US strategic partnership, the victory plan, and ways to put an end to Russian aggression against the Ukraine. Right. And Keir Starmer from United Kingdom saying congratulations President-elect Donald Trump on your historic election victory. I look forward to working with you in the years to come. Right. Let me see if I can pick out some more. Right. Abiy Ahmed from Ethiopia. In fact, congratulations to Donald Trump on your election victory and comeback. I look forward to working together to further strengthen the relationship between our two countries during your term. Right. And then Benjamin Netanyahu saying, dear Donald and Melania Trump, congratulations on history's greatest comeback. Your historic return to the White House offers a new beginning for America and a powerful recommitment to the great alliance between Israel and America. This is a huge victory in true friendship. Yours, Benjamin and Sarah Netanyahu. So there we are. And then Justin Trudeau from Canada saying, congratulations to Donald Trump on being elected President of the United States. The friendship between Canada and the U.S. is the envy of the world. I know President Trump and I will work together to create more opportunity, prosperity and security for both of our nations. Okay, there could well be more. You want to send out a message of congratulations? No, just give me your one word. Your one word that for you is best describes your feelings, your emotions about Donald Trump now being elected the president of the USA. Help me with this one. I did say that. You know anybody who's been elected president of the USA and then losing the next term and then being re-elected after that, as opposed to being elected 2 terms running? I want to know. I haven't Googled it. You can certainly do so and help me with that. Maybe Lawrence Karamba could tell me. So we have with us Dr. Lawrence Karamba, the researcher at the Mapungubwe Institute for Strategic Reflection. That's MISTRA. Good talking to you, and thanks for your time.
Hi, thanks. Good to be here. And I can't remember offhand whether there's been anyone who has served 2 non-consecutive terms as U.S. president before. It's an interesting trivia question.
Yeah, and then would you know this one? And if you don't know, I understand. I mean, could he then still serve another consecutive? Could he serve another term after this? Because it's not consecutive in the past.
According to the Constitution, no, because there's a 2-term limit, and that it doesn't depend on whether there was a break in the middle.
Okay, I got that. So just 2 terms, no matter what. Right. Thanks for that lesson. Right. Let's talk about impact on some of the key regions in the world. So we have a new president of the USA. First things first, USA and South Africa. How will that change?
I think the biggest issue is going to be in terms of our trading relations with the United States. And this comes from 2 things. The first is the fact that Trump tends to be skeptical of trade in a general sense. I mean, I say skeptical, he said his exact words that he said in his speech was, tariffs are the most beautiful word in the dictionary. Which kind of gives you a sense of how he views international trade in general terms. And then when we get into South Africa, there's also a specific layer on top of that, which is the AGOA agreement, or it's actually legislation in the US, which kind of lies on top of that. And so both of those 2 things could be in danger. If Trump puts in place tariffs, across the board tariffs on imports from all countries. Mm-hmm. South Africa would obviously be included in that, and that would be a risk to our economy and the global economy. And then AGOA kind of sharpens the risk on top of that, because it's an additional layer in which South Africa might be vulnerable to potential changes under the Trump administration.
Okay, we certainly know already at this point with AGOA and this free trade agreement with African countries, that could move from on-side to off-side. Would that have been would that shape, or would Trump's opinion be shaped by South Africa's policy regarding Israel-Palestine? Because that certainly came up last year, right? Or before, a few months ago, in fact.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a possibility. Trump, again, he is the sort of person who can be, he can hold grudges, we shall say. He is the sort of person who has a willingness to pay back his enemies if he feels that he has been wronged in some way, and he might view South Africa's, he might be inclined to view South Africa's stance on Israel and the Palestinians as a challenge, and wish to punish South Africa by removing its AGOA status. Mm-hmm. But I think it is important to see that even if that weren't the case, though, his general stance on trade already makes that quite likely.
I see. So let's talk about these in one sentence, right? There's been a Democratic Party position regarding Ukraine versus Russia, and a Democratic Party position regarding Palestine and Israel. How is the Republican Trump position now likely to change American policy?
So in general, the Republican position is more supportive of Israel compared to the Democrats. And I think, the incumbent Democrat government has already been very supportive of Israel, but I think Trump would be significantly more so in important ways. And on Ukraine, it's kind of the opposite. The incumbent has been supportive of Ukraine, and I think there is a possibility that we will see U.S. support for Ukraine cut off under a Trump administration.
Okay. What about now, one thing is support, right? And this sounds contradictory, that Trump has certainly also spoken about being anti-war, and he's done that before, right? You think that's going to happen again?
Trump positions himself as anti-war in a kind of an isolationist sense. You've sort of got this idea, it's almost like this idea that the U.S. can kind of keep to itself and do its own thing, and not have to, he doesn't like the idea of supporting other countries, I think is the main thing. He doesn't like the idea of the US supporting Europe through NATO, and he doesn't like the idea of the US just kind of giving weapons away to Ukraine. I don't think he's objectively anti-war, though. I mean, under his first term, we saw him carry out, unilateral missile strikes against targets in Syria, for example. We saw him, launch strikes even against Iran. I think he's an aggressive nationalist figure. He doesn't like foreign alliances that require the US to make commitments to other countries, but he is willing to attack other countries if he feels that that he's not getting his way, basically.
Mm-hmm. In fact, he's been described by one of the analysts from Al Jazeera, whose name escapes me for the moment, as someone who's ultra-nationalist and not even just national, but ultra-nationalist. And do you see, therefore, that shift taking place and then impacting on other countries?
Yeah, I mean, look, any U.S. administration is going to pursue U.S. national interests, right? And we could say that for any country. So that is not going to be a fundamental change. But I think there is sort of differences in terms of strategy and tactics. And like I say, I don't think that Trump views long-term permanent alliances or agreements or institutions of cooperation with other countries. He tends not to value these things as much, and I think that will inform his foreign policy.
So perhaps as is the last thing, considering all of the above, if you were President Ramaphosa and then his department, from trade and industry and international relations, what sort of conversations would you be having with Trump now? What would you want to be putting on the agenda?
Well, I think definitely I would be trying to position our relationship with the United States as one in which the U.S. also gains things, because that's how Trump tends to see things, as transactional, as, in terms of reciprocity. He wants to see what he's getting from a bargain. But at the same time, if I were president, I would also be looking at how we strengthen our trade relations with other countries. Things, how do we fast track things like the African Continental Free Trade Area, for example, because there's a possibility that we will start to lose some of our export markets, and we need to think about how we forge stronger trading relationships with other countries that do still want to be part of a global trading system.
Well, let's see. That happens pretty soon, right? Dr. Lawrence Karomba, researcher at MISTRA, which is the Mapungubwe Institute for Strategic Reflection. Thank you so much for your input. And by the way, as we wrap up that conversation, Ruben Pillay from Durban messaging saying, Ashraf, Richard Nixon served 2 non-consecutive terms. So that's interesting, that he did that 2 non-consecutive, and then also, just to be history in the making, he also didn't finish that second term, if I got my Watergate story all correct. We do live in strange times, and we continue living in strange times. This is the National Pulse.
South African Airways is expanding in the DRC. We now offer direct flights from Johannesburg to Lubumbashi, the heart of the DRC's mining hub. Our convenient arrival time allows seamless connections to key regions like Ndola and the Copper Belt, opening up new growth opportunities. Traders can benefit from our generous baggage allowance, while SAA's superior aircraft belly capacity ensures your cargo reaches most parts of Congo on the same day. Book now at flysaa.com or contact your travel agent. South African Airways, connecting Africa to the world, one flight at a time.
Hey yo, what's the go? I'm out here with the Quellas. Now peep this, check out Back to the City performance on SABC 1 Mzansi for sure. Yeah! For sure, Back to the City level. Yeah!
For all the hip-hop heads, check out the Back to the City special, Saturday 9 November at 8 p.m. only on SABC 1.
Our role must be to seek to build a better world,
SAFM invites you to our annual public lecture, delivered by former Minister Dr. Naledi Pandor. The theme for the lecture is 30 Years of South African Freedom. Reimagining South Africa's democracy, achievements, challenges, and the road ahead in protecting our democratic gains. The lecture will take place on the 21st of November 2024 at the Birchwood Hotel and Conference Centre. Secure your seat by emailing us at info@safm.co.za.
Today, I'm part of seeking to build a better South Africa.
SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
Here, there, and everywhere. SAFM 105.1 FM in Johannesburg.
Of course, we've had comments on Trump in the one word, but you've been saying, I think you're just saying, ooh, maybe that's the one word. Ooh, it sounds great, Ashraf. Then saying, it's only the woke liberal lunatics that would describe it as a disaster. Trump winning is a victory for the free world, the sane and the morally correct. From Eben in Bloemfontein. And there's another one word for the U.S. Election outcome is reality check, making sure it's hyphenated, double barreled, got your own word sorted out. Americans have reminded everyone that voters vote for issues that affect them personally at home, example, jobs in the economy, and much less so for external international issues, comes from Farai. I think that I would agree with you, that is true, that international relations has some impact, but it's not the major impact in determining an election victory or defeat, for that matter. So what about domestic issues back home here in South Africa? Well, let's talk about, yesterday we touched on it, the march around the Bella Bull, headed to a large degree by AfriForum. Now, the ANC study group on basic education in Parliament, well, they've urged President Ramaphosa to promulgate commencement of all sections of the Bella Act with immediate effect. Okay, that sounds like a quick demand. Tsepo Low is with us. Tsepo is the whip of the ANC study group on basic education. Appreciate your time, Tsepo. Thanks for connecting to the National Pulse.
No, thank you very much. Let me greet the listeners and let me also welcome you. Yes, indeed, yesterday we have released a statement that clarifies and that clearly states that the president must implement all of the clauses in Bella Act so that we're able to move forward. 2025 must make sure that every learner has an access to free and equitable school system that has no barriers or that has no any other scars of the injustices.
All right. Now, I know initially the Bella Act, well, the bill would have been passed as an act a few months ago. Then it was only partially done. There was some pressure from amongst other parties, the partners of the ANC in government, notably the DA, right? But you now saying, if I pick up from your statement, you're talking about commencing with the promulgation of all sections, all, right? The key word is all, with immediate effect. Why the urgency? Has it come about because of yesterday's protest march by AfriForum and others?
No. We are of the view that the Bella Act aims to enhance educational quality and equity in our school system. It seeks to address the historical disparities that could have that could have been created by the regime, and then ensuring that every child has access to education. And we are further saying that this is aligned with the constitutional mandate of the country, where each and every learner must have access to education without any discrimination. What becomes a mad people's arrangement, what becomes a misguided campaign by a minority groupings is when they want to misguide or mislead society to say that Bella seeks to remove medium of instructions, subject languages, but Bella seeks to align accordingly the act so that it responds back to those who are the marginalized.
So maybe you can help us with this to understand this. In terms of maybe two things significantly: in terms of language and in terms of the powers of the school governing bodies, what are their rights that they have now, and how does the Bella Act change that?
You will understand that the South African governing bodies have been given much more powers to appoint, to deal with the admission of learners. And we found out that in most formal modernity schools, this is being used to prohibit most learners not to enter the schools through language proficiencies. Now you will realize that the Act seeks to make more transparent, inclusive decisions on language policies, and it gives back the education department more power to intervene in the cases where the SGB is biased in this case. So we are referring to this. Let me make an example. You'll find out that a school is residing in a particular ward. When you look at the radius of the ward, you'll find out that that school, the demographics of the school, it gives you that 60% is black majority learners, and then 40% or 30% becomes colored, and then 7% becomes white. But when you go to the school as a quintile 5, you'll find out that most of the learners dominating are the ones who are lesser in the particular radius, given the fact that the language proficiency is being used as a tool to prohibit. Now, Bella says, yes, take note and ensure that as you make decision on the promotion of that particular language policies, also add 3 languages that are going to make sure that everyone has access to school. And if the applications of learners who are from different race or learners who are not from dominant areas like that, give effect and make sure that you bring to that language into their disposal and make sure that there is inclusivity in making sure that we all make sure that learners have access without any discrimination.
Okay, just lastly, what do you feel about those that oppose what let's say the ANC are saying, and maybe government, and certainly what those, for example, like you are saying, and definitely those that push a different line, like AfriForum? What do you say to them?
I think those who are opposing must be in position to thoroughly sit down and read and understand the context of Bella Act. Bella Act seeks not to take anyone's culture to preserve or to do anything, but Bella Act seeks to speak of the injustices, and Bella Act speaks to bring back a rainbow nation and give access, and we want to change and align the current demands of the economy with the education sector that is better, that is well equipped and resourced, because it wouldn't be fair that some certain schools have prohibited other learners while other learners have capacity and they are capable of doing it. Let us sit down together, formulate a dialogue that speaks on how best can implement this act without having to attach any racial extensions, without having to attach anything that seeks to take us back where we're coming from. We're calling for the immediate implementation. We're calling for us to sit down and further seek to sit down on how to further implement the act.
Let's leave it at that. Some may say you're sitting down together anyway. I mean, so we believe. Seppo Low is the whip of the ANC study group on basic education. Now, interestingly enough, the basic education minister, Siviwe Khwarube, has now just confirmed that her department has started implementing the Bella Act. I mean, just making that point. But having said that, that act is not completely finished. It's unfinished. So I suppose in starting to implement, it is what was already agreed upon. Now, I just want to make this one final point. We chatted to Geraldine Fraser-Moleketi on Friday on the Fireside Chat, and she said you cannot have a minister who now is part of government who doesn't, who boycotts that first day. Remember when that act was partially accepted? She said, when you're part of a GNU, you're part of government, not a political party. And she said, according to her, if she were the president, she thinks that the education minister should have been fired. So don't take my word for it. We've actually got a podcast of that conversation. I'll actually get the guys to tweet it just now. She said the minister should have been fired for not attending that particular confirmation or enactment into law at that time. That's South Africa, alive with possibilities. 5:30 years in news headlines with Greg Rose.
Quick look at the headlines. Some emerging market currencies and stocks have suffered losses after a U.S. election win by Republican Donald Trump sent the dollar sharply higher and raised the threat of fresh trade barriers. IPID in the Western Cape says 9 police officers, including 2 Hawks members, have been identified for disciplinary action in the case of murdered anti-gang unit detective Charles Kinnear. And police in the Northwest say the number of suspected illegal miners who've emerged from underground at a shaft in Stilfontein has now increased to over 1,000. There's a full update at 6 o'clock.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the N3 southbound in Edenvale has a crash reported before Modderfontein Road. The N1 southbound in Eldorado Park has a crash reported on the link to the N12 Potchefstroom Highway. The M1 southbound is queuing through Crown Interchange towards Boysons. In KZN, the R102 is slow moving through Mount Moriah. Chris Hani Road northbound, slow moving through Breadine. In Cape Town, the M3 southbound queuing towards Rhodes Drive, and the M5 northbound is queuing towards the N1 Kuburg Interchange. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Khapele.
Right here to me, there's rugby build-up on Friday because the Springbok team will be announced then, not not tomorrow or so, right? But you got football news.
Absolutely. The PSL have confirmed an increase in prize money from 15 million to 20 million rand for the champions of the 2024-25 season. Other incentives for the rest of the teams will be communicated at a later stage. And PSL chairman Dr. Irvin Khoza says that it was very important to make this announcement ahead of the NSL elections in a week's time.
This week is my last week as chairman. Because next week there are elections. We don't know what's going to happen. So we must mop up all the outstanding issues for proper housekeeping. Now, when we announced the Betway sponsorship, one thing that we omitted to announce at that point in time were two things. One of the things that we forgot to announce, subject to some kind of internal discussion with the executive committee, was the prize money. Now today I'm going to announce the prize money of the winner only. The winner of the Betway Premiership, number 1 position, 20 million rands.
In tonight's action, Stellenbosch FC will be looking to add to TS Galaxy's problems when the two teams meet at Athlone Stadium tonight at 7:30 p.m. The Rockets are rooted at the bottom of the log and are yet to claim 3 points in the league. They just have 1 point to their name, so very desperate for a win tonight, while Stellies are hoping for a win to break into the top 3. Then Mamelodi Sundowns will be looking for revenge against Polokwane City at Loftus Versfeld, and Downs midfielder Batusi Obas is asking for consistency from his teammates.
I think game against Kaizer Chiefs we played very well and we apply ourselves the way coach wanted us to play, and then going to Polokwane to this Wednesday, I think we have to apply whatever that coach wants by that day, and then we have to focus on ourselves. Obviously we didn't play well against them in Polokwane. We didn't have even a shot on target.
Then there's also Champions League action tonight with 18 more teams, and Arsenal captain Martin Odegaard could return in tonight's clash against Inter Milan. The 25-year-old has been out since September, and Mikel Arteta says that he'll decide later if he'll use him today or not. Other fixtures, so in other selected fixtures, Aston Villa travelled to face Club Brugge, and then Bayern Munich will be eaching to collect 3 points against Benfica. Then in cricket, David Warner was named captain of the Big Bash League team Sydney Thunder today after having his lifetime ban on any leadership role in Australian cricket lifted. Warner was cast as the main villain in the so-called Sandpaper Gate scandal in the Cape Town Test of 2018. He was suspended from playing for a year and banned from any leadership role for life. Then in rugby, the Springbok assistant coach Dwayne Vermeulen has warned that Sunday's end-of-year tour test against Scotland will be anything but a walk in the park. The Boks will face the Thistles at the home of Scottish rugby, Murrayfield, on Sunday in their first test on tour. The Scots have already played a test in the autumn series, while the Springboks have only been together for just more than a week. And Vermeulen said that it's hard to tell if the Scotlands will still be the same side that they faced at the Rugby World Cup in France last year, but they know that the hosts will be fired up and they need to be wary of that. Then finally in golf, Rory McIlroy says that Donald Trump's return to the White House could clear the way for a peace deal between the PGA Tour and Saudi Public Investment Fund. A few months ago, McIlroy said that the U.S. Department of Justice was one of the main obstacles of the deal, but having Trump, who's an avid golfer and who's also for Live Golf, back in the office could influence the priorities of the DOJ and perhaps help this deal go across the line.
Listen, I want to ask you this. Did you see Manchester United's new manager, Ruben Amorim's last home game for Sporting Lisbon?
Yeah.
And he was, of course, his last home game. He was carried aloft by his support, by the players and everybody else in massive euphoria. Not just that it was his goodbye and they love him so much, but that result last night was Sporting Lisbon 4, Manchester City 1.
A lot of people were saying that he was introducing himself to Pep Guardiola.
Well, he said if I win, you'll call me the new Alex Ferguson. This is before the game, and if I lose, I'll just be another guy. So he was introduced as, hi, Alex, at the press conference. So there we are. That's fun. More sports tomorrow. Yeah.
Yeah. Ke nna tume kgapele, Modimo ke yo.
If you think you cannot afford a lawyer, think again. Clientele Legal has made professional legal services affordable for you. Whether it's a civil, criminal, or labor-related matter, we have a nationwide panel of attorneys standing by to assist you. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195 and we'll call you back. Clientele General is a licensed non-life insurer and an authorized FSP. Standard rates and terms and conditions apply.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
Right, Jimmy, lots to talk about, I suppose, in your world as well. And my question is, like, what's moving markets? And you're going to sing a song here, right, are you?
If I could sing, I might. But at this point, nothing has mattered today. Absolutely nothing has made any difference in the markets other than the name Donald J. Trump. Because the US elections took center stage, everything moved when the results started coming through, and as the results started skewing more and more in Trump's favor, the markets started reacting in that same fashion. And when the results were officially declared that Donald Trump had won the election, you saw a big reaction towards the dollar and other areas like the equity markets. South African equity markets had a torrid day as a result of this. We'll get to those in a second. First, let's get a quick summary of what's coming up on the show. We're going to unpack the Trump win. We're going to be speaking to the Professor for Economics, Finance and Strategy at the Gordon Institute for Business Sciences, Professor Adrian Seville, about that victory, because it has some implications on the global trade situation, on markets, on policy, on absolutely everything you can think of. We had a very clear idea of what it could potentially look like with a Republican victory, and now that Republican victory is certain, we're going to see if we can unpack that and see where it puts South Africa going forward. Then we've also got a conversation with the FSCA, the Financial Sector Conduct Authority. We do this as often as possible with them around some consumer awareness. We do Warning Wednesdays with them. We're going to be taking a look at some enforcement actions. They've issued some new fines. Some individuals have been fined 30 million rand, some individuals have been fined 3 million rand, or 8 million rand rather, some have been debarred for 12 years, and we're going to unpack all of those decisions from the FSCA's perspective, but also we're going to look at what it means for you and I as consumers dealing with individuals that have been debarred, what we need to know, how we can better protect ourselves. Then we've got a conversation with the National Consumer Commission around the latest position from the Department of Trade, Industry and Cooperation around their crackdown on telemarketers. There's a piece of legislation that's out for public review at the moment. We might be coming to the end of spam calling, and I, for one, am grateful for that. I imagine many others might be as well. We're going to unpack that with the National Consumer Commission and see what it is that this new piece of legislation or this amendment would potentially mean for you and I. And then, because it's Wednesday, we've got an executive on a Wednesday that we get to know a little bit better. We're going to be speaking to the executive at Mondelez International, getting to know what she does when she's not running a big multinational business, or at least a division within a big multinational business. As I said, markets had a horrible day from the South African perspective, but there were some markets that had an absolutely amazing day. Obviously, US markets, but we'll start with Asian markets. Hong Kong was down 2.2%. The Nikkei in Tokyo was up 2.2%. The mainland China index was flat. The Sydney ASX was up 0.8%. European markets all in the red, with the DAX leading the charge there, 0.9% in the red. South African markets, so painful. The All Share down 1.5%, the Top 40 down 1.6%, Resources down 4%, Industrials down 0.8%, Financials down 1%. There was nothing in the green in terms of our local equities. There were some equities that did trade in the green, but by and large, the platinum counters and all the other mining companies were in the red. And we're going to unpack that in our show a little later on around the impact of Donald Trump coming into the presidency and its effect on commodities pricing, because when we look at the commodities pricing, the platinum price was even lower today at $985 an ounce, with palladium at $1,040 an ounce, and the gold price coming down more than 2%. The obvious reason there is, of course, that the gold price has a correlation to the US dollar, and we saw that US dollar begin to move as soon as we got rumblings that it might be a Donald Trump victory. Against the rand, it's currently at 17 rand 67. At some point, this was at 17.75 before the election results started coming through. Just for context, we were at 17 rand 38 yesterday around this time. So big moves on the rand, a side of it giving back quite a bit of gains against the US dollar. Against the British pound, it's at 22 rand 75. 1 euro will cost you 18 rand and 94 cents. It's below 19 rand, so that's cause for celebration there. 1 Australian dollar, 11 rand and 61 cents. And Bitcoin, the biggest mover of the day without a doubt, at some point was up close to about 10%, clocking $75,000 a coin. Currently at $74,000 a coin, and that is 1.3 million rand for a Bitcoin. When we started this week, that was 1.1 million rand. So Donald Trump has done wonders for Bitcoin, terrible for markets that are not US friendly, but we'll unpack these and more stories a little later on.
Okay, and just quick one, your soundbite answer in terms of the masterclass on when we talk about tariffs, what are we referring to?
I thought it would be fitting to take a look at this as the soundbite, given that it is a Donald Trump favorite. It is probably his favorite word. Effectively, it's a tax imposed by one country on the goods and services imported from another country so that they can protect their competitive advantage. We know that Donald is going to be rolling these out like candy in the coming weeks, months, and years, especially given that this is his second and final run at the White House. We can expect that this is not going to be an easy 5 years, but it's certainly going to be an interesting one.
Okay, got that. In fact, I would think it's 4 years, unless you want to extend it by another year. That's USA versus South Africa. Imagine him once saying, give me 5 years, not 4. My goodness, man. Okay, that's it. We will listen to your show. I certainly will on my way to, the Brave Journalism Awards event tonight. So I will certainly listen to Adrian Saville if you get him up early. Thanks for that. Right, we're going to get to your calls. And then, as always, we have the feature called Winning. All of that coming up next.
Across South Africa, online and on radio. SAFM, let's talk.
The Hammers have a mammoth task to find a path to the top half. They target maximum points against the Toffees.
And bundled in by Sensio Somerville, his first West Ham United goal.
Meanwhile, the Toffees have the same predicament. They want out of the bottom half as soon as possible.
It's a cross goal and it's netted by Beto, and Everton have equalised 4 minutes into
This is the Premier League. Catch the exciting clash between West Ham United FC and Everton FC on Saturday, 9 November at 4:30 p.m. live on SABC3. Also available everywhere for everyone, always on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Our role must be to seek to build a better world.
SAFM invites you to our annual public lecture, delivered by former Minister Dr. Naledi Pandor. The theme for the lecture is 30 Years of South African Freedom, reimagining South Africa's democracy, achievements, challenges, and the road ahead in protecting our democratic gains. The lecture will take place on the 21st of November 2024 at the Birchwood Hotel and Conference Centre. Secure your seat by emailing us at info@safm.co.za.
Today, I'm part of seeking to build a better South Africa.
SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. X at SAFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
Okay, let's get to some. I want to play some voice notes. I'll get to some calls as well. Sipiwe is with us in Meyerton. Hi.
Hi, Ashraf.
Yeah, good talking to you. But you got some bad news, yeah?
Not please, really, can you educate me about South African laws? Can't Ramaphosa, whoever, Minister of Health, ban these chips because kids are dying every day? What the law says, who has the right to ban all these chips until further notice?
Okay, so just explain, I mean, just a little bit more, because it's not very clear. You're not very clear. Just one more, explain a bit more what you mean.
Kids are dying because of this shift that they're buying from Pakistan, from tech shops.
Yeah,
Can't
okay.
they ban these shifts until further notice? Because kids are dying.
Well, I hear you. I think it's a conversation we've had. The reality is they're buying it from spaza shops. What we don't even know is there's a whole value chain, not just the person who's selling the goods. Where does that person who's selling it buy it from, and where do they buy it from? So there's a whole lot of different people that we don't quite understand. What we do understand is it's not acceptable. I mean, it's crazy that people can be dying like that. That I completely concur with you 100%. CP, thanks for that call. Let's see if we can get more calls as well. So here's a message. Ashraf, your commentator was incorrect on this point. I'm not too sure which one you're referring to. Is it about the consecutive election? I'm not too sure. If you could explain, let me know, right? Initially we spoke about cricket, remember, a long time ago. Here we are.
Hi, Ashraf. This is KG from the capital. I would sit 4 days, watch the test matches. Yeah. You know the way cricket games come in short supply. So when they are there, I go to as much games as possible. Wander between Wanderers and Supersport Park. That's where I'll be going. So yeah, man, enjoy the summer, enjoy the cricket, because it'll be gone soon, Shem.
Oh, there we are. Well, I'll tell you what, I'd love to come and sit with you, not for 4 days, maybe just 2 days maximum. Always like the first day, by the way. The rest of it depends on what happens afterwards, right? So here's another comment on the Bella Bill.
Good day, SAFM listeners. The Bella Act, I think it will help us a lot. Currently, I stay here in Kels River. My child cannot get school where I'm 5 minutes walk away from school. So I believe this is going to help us, because these schools, they use the language issue to exclude our children. So that's Maheta MJ Nemsasangene. Thank you.
All right, there we are. And I think that's an issue that's been raised before, right? But and also, naturally, the issue of Donald Trump.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. My name is Elfas Ngowe here in KZN. To use the football parlance within the political context, I would say that the Democrats were walloped by a well-oiled Republican machine led by Captain Fantastic Donald Trump. Congratulations to the incoming president. The polls got it so wrong this time around. Anyway, enjoy evening, Ashraf.
Well, that's true. The polls got it wrong. Remember, everybody said it'll be an absolute knife edge, right? And I must tell you, South Africa's polls in our election, and I was at the results center, right? I think when we had about 15% of the vote counted, they said we can give it to you within 1.5% of the result. And they were spot on. When they were talking about ANC 42, it was like, you must be crazy talking nonsense like that. Well, they were right. They were right. And when they spoke about the MK and how well they'll do and how poor the EFF were going to do, it was like, no, that's not true. They were spot on, all like within a percentage of each other. I was quite impressed. So, just think about it. South Africans, we get far more right than we give ourselves credit for. We are. There are aspects that we quite simply are champions at. And I say that because our next feature is called Winning. And we'll talk to a winner right after this.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
Right, we're gonna end the show with a feature we called Winning, and we speak to someone who's top of the game, or an institute that's top of the game in whatever they do. Right. And today it's interesting because we've spoken about this before, the social justice awards that took place a few weeks ago, and that's the social justice awards linked to, that is driven by and large by Thuli Madonsela's social justice foundation of sorts. Now, I have to say up front, I'm in a privileged position of having been part of one of the champions or councillors of the awards, which meant that I also had a position of actually being part of the judging committee. So it's interesting. So finally, we get to talk. We've had one winner already, the overall winner, and I'll get an update on that as well just now. But in terms of one of the categories, which is the Rising Star category for the Social Justice Awards of 2024, is Karabo Mokhonyana, right? And we talked to Karabo today. Karabo, good chatting to you. Hi.
Hi, Ashraf, and good day to your listeners.
Yeah, and well done to you. Congratulations. I mean, what a pleasure to introduce you as the 2024 Social Justice Rising Star, isn't it?
Thank you so much. It feels good.
Yeah.
Feels good.
Well, I suppose it doesn't just feel good. I mean, and I was not there in Stellenbosch, but you, or rather in somewhere in Cape Town, I know that. But you certainly were there, right? What was it like when you were receiving the award? I mean, you knew you were going to win, I know that. But just to be called up and saying, hey, you're a winner for XYZ.
It was really validating more than anything. I think social justice work is not easy because you have to become selfless. You show up for people, and sometimes it's life-threatening. Sometimes it's not as rewarding. You volunteer your time. You're not getting paid. And as a young person, it's worse because there are narratives around how we are rebellious and we're not really progressive. So it was very validating. It was also something that was encouraging to say, continue, putting in the work, continue fighting the good fight, and continue, being selfless and pushing social justice for people in South Africa because they need it.
Okay. Why did you win? I mean, were you obviously there and you must have spoken to the people and they told you what about yourself?
They spoke about the work that I do in relation to the communities that I am serving. So I do a lot of human rights work and I do gender and youth development, currently focusing on renewable energy in communities. But at the heart of it was really my servant nature. So showing up and really pushing, whether it's fighting government to show up for communities, whether it's liberating governments to fight for themselves. I've been doing a lot of work with different civil society organizations to push for human rights in South Africa.
Tell me about your own journey. I mean, the things you've done and your own journey to get there.
It's not even far-fetched. It's really a reality that we see within our community. So I have my own humble beginnings, grew up in Limpopo, got to really experience things like just seeing poverty, experiencing poverty, seeing the gender-based violence that we speak about, seeing young girls get pregnant. And for me, it's always that thing of it could have been you in a lot of those situations. Yes, I've experienced my own things, but at the same time, there was just something within me that I was not comfortable with the fact that these things are happening and I can't do anything about them. But also the reality is that there's certain things myself I've faced, and unfortunately there's so many injustices, whether it's systematic changes that are needed or it is our leaders that need to be alarmed of the realities on the ground, because once they get into positions they're very numb to realities. Those kinds of things were just important, and it's not something I'm fetching from somewhere extraordinary. It's really something that I see every day within our communities, that it is problematic that a lot of these social issues are happening.
And what, when you sort of embarked on this journey, what drove you about social justice? And I say that because, you're the rising star, not just anywhere, but in the Social Justice Award. So there's a clear recognition that you are effectively someone who's switched on with regard to the need for social justice.
I'll say I switched on because of identity. So I am a young black woman living in South Africa, and a lot of the social injustices disproportionately affect me automatically by virtue of my identity. So outside of class and where I sit in society in terms of whether I'm qualified or not and those kind of things, those are extra layers. But by virtue of being a young black woman, there are certain experiences that I'm exposed to, whether it's access to education, whether it's the realities of gender-based violence, whether it's any sort of economic inequalities due to the economic disparities in our countries. Those kind of things affect me. And it was and is important for me to get up and do something, because it's not just affecting me, but it's affecting every other person who looks like me that comes after.
And now that you're winning, and this is not the only acknowledgement, I mean, you're winning, what was it, the Mandela recognition. Just tell me more about that too.
Other recognitions include not really the Mandela recognition, but the Young Mandelas.
You've even forgotten you won so many awards you can't remember. I understand.
Yeah, so there was the Young Mandelas in social justice as well.
Yeah.
That recognizes young people who have, the spirit of Utata Madiba and, fighting for social justice, fighting for human rights in South Africa. And I think that was quite great. I resonate more with Mamwini, but I'll take Utata Madiba any time because I think he did such an incredible job in terms of advancing our country, even though it was, it was a compromise, but advancing in such horrible context and circumstances for our country.
And then just lastly, what do you, going forward, you win an award, you want to leverage of that. I mean, the people who were there, the endorsement this award means for your projects and for your own journey, right? How do you intend leveraging of this award? I wouldn't be talking to you, for example, if you didn't win the award. It's true.
Of course. I think it opens up networks and just other, whether it's, for example, the Thuli Madonsela Foundation or University of Stellenbosch or the partners in the specific award. I think that's an opportunity for the work that I do and any sort of work that I extend to other civil society organizations to be connected with those strategic partners. So partnerships and collaborations should come at least out of this award because, I can't do the work alone. We are better in numbers when it comes to social justice, and collaboration is going to be at the heart of the work that I do going forward.
And I tell you what, when you win, South Africa wins. That's why this feature winning is just so important. So keep on winning at all that you do, and we know as a country we'll benefit from all that you do as well. So thanks for your time, Karabo.
Thank you so much for having me.
There we are. Karabo Mokgonyana, winner of the Social Justice Rising Star of the Year 2024. So Social Justice, the overall awards, Rising Star 2024 for her work in social justice causes, that is, in marginalized societies. By the way, Athol Williams, he won the overall social justice champion of the year, and even that conversation, we spoke to him about 3 weeks back. That conversation is up as a podcast as well. Just go to safm.co.za, you'll find the podcast. They're absolutely there, and I think you'll really enjoy listening to that. What other word Adol's saying? Let me see. Adol's saying the one word for him for Trump is tremendous, and let's talk about tremendous. The 21st of November is an important date. Naledi Pandor will be speaking at the SAFM's annual public lecture, and that takes place at Birchwood Hotel in Boksburg, right? So 6 p.m., 7 p.m. start. I'll get the dates right. The important one for you is this, right? If you want to attend, it's for free. It's mahala, so I've been told. And all you have to do is, it's first come, first serve. Email info@safm.co.za. And the good news, if I can say so, if you come, you'll actually say hello to me too, and I'll say hello to you. So if that's any consolation prize, like Vitality prizes, that's what you'll get. But the big prize is Naledi Pandor for about an hour or so, I think, delivering the lecture, and there'll be a conversation based upon what she says as well. Clearly, that's connecting to the national pulse. Let's get the news now. It's 6 p.m. Here's Greg House.
Thank you again, Ashraf. In this news update, stocks lose ground after Trump victory and disciplinary action over slain detective's murder case. Good evening to you. Some emerging market currencies and stocks have suffered losses after a U.S. election win by Republican Donald Trump sent the U.S. dollar sharply higher.